Hello, everyone. Welcome to Developing Palates. I'm Aaron Loomis, coming to you from the Drew Estate studio, and with me today is John McTavish from the Powstanie studio. How you doing, John?
Doing better, man. I'm finally getting my sleep cycles in order. My watch started to alarm on the weekend because it was like, man, you're sleeping more than 5 hours a night. What's going on? And I'm like, well, we're getting the brain pan back into order so I can actually think and do work. And yeah, it feels good. It feels good. It was a safe and uneventful flight home, which is good when you're dealing with Canadian Border Services. You never know what you're going to get.
True. I will say that I didn't have as big of a problem as Ben Lee did, but flight home was a bit eventful. We had some delays and things of that nature, and I think a lot of people had that. So air travel is, I guess, is going downhill with a lot of other things post-COVID here. So yeah, that's all I'll say about that. All right, so we have a little show going on tonight. Hopefully we can find some things to talk about and some people to talk about it with us.
We're not doing cigar reviews tonight?
Nah, I don't think so.
Oh,
well,
okay.
we're going to do some reviews, but probably not. Cigars will probably be the least of the reviews part.
Right.
But we have a full panel tonight. We're doing our annual PCA recap show. We're just back. The show wrapped up on Tuesday. Give everybody a chance to settle in, hopefully heal up a bit, and be able to spend some time kind of chatting about that tonight. So I'm just going to introduce people as they show up on my screen, and it may be different for other people, but we'll go this way. First off, from Blue Smoke of Dallas, and also a PCA board member, Jay Davis. Thank you for joining, Jay.
Thank you for inviting me.
From Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust, Steve Saka. How you doing, Steve?
Would not miss this cluster muck for anything.
So I'm not sure how to introduce you, Mike. Cigar Hustler, Powstanie, the #1 podcast. I don't really know how to introduce you in this arena.
I mean, you could say #1 podcast. That's
okay,
perfect.
There you go. We'll go with that. We'll go. So Mike Szczepankiewicz, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Will you have a buzzer for after people exceed their time limit to move on with this panel? Just out of curiosity.
Yes. If you want to speak, just buzz in and we'll move it along. Yeah.
Perfect.
From Tatuaje, we have Pete Johnson. Thanks for joining us, Pete.
What's up, guys? Nice to be here.
From Cigar-Coop, William Cooper. How you doing, Will?
Hey, guys.
And then from Smoke Inn, we have Brandy. Abe. It shows as Brandy on the thing. How you doing, Abe?
Someone changed his name. Unmute, Abe.
Unmute.
I ended up having to use my wife's computer.
That's okay. No worries.
At least, yeah.
Is it the McAllen speaking again?
Not yet. I just cracked it, so not yet. Not yet. It's good. I'll get there.
So I do want to thank all of you for taking your personal time to join us tonight. I know it's, getting back from the trade show, people still entering orders, probably recapping what they bought and things of that nature. But we really appreciate you spending some time with us tonight. The way I'd like to start it off again is kind of talking about, I guess, kind of what your thought process was leading into the show. So we're not at the show yet, but we're getting up to that point. And I think I'm gonna start on the retail side this time. So Jay and Abe, you can kind of jump in as you think, but kind of leading into this trade show, what were your thoughts on what you might expect from it, or what were your goals heading into the trade show? Like, did you have specific brands you wanted to see? Were there certain areas that you were focused on, or how did that work?
I'll let Abe go first.
Going to the trade show for me is kind of a refined thing at this point in my career. So, I have a team that kind of goes there and does really the heavy lifting. They do all the ordering, the day-to-day stuff, whatever. I'll usually go to a trade show with, a list of projects I'd like to put together. And sometimes it's a really good time to kind of sit with some of these guys and talk about things while I have their attention. And I kind of spend most of my time on the floor doing that. And of course, this year, Pete and I had our own little project that we were working on. So a little bit of my focus was making sure that went over smoothly. But, a trade show for me really is more project oriented, kind of planning out the year ahead more than it is day to day. There are a couple companies every year that might be on our radar that I might just drop by and want to see. And I think there was 2 this year that we stopped by and looked at. But It's a lot simpler for me to go to a trade show these days than it was like, 10, 15 years ago.
All right, Jay, how about you?
Well, I usually start planning about a month ahead of time. I look at my sales for the prior year and kind of figure out based upon just by the companies and how they sell an aggregate budget, and then break it down. And then I kind of tweak with brands that I think that are growing and brands that our customers are excited about. And then where brands are not doing as well, I might tweak down the budget, or with certain brands that are growing or doing very well, I'll increase the budget. And then I have to compare that with what I actually have cash wise. So generally when I come into the show, I'm pretty much prepared what I'm going to spend, but I also have a slush fund if I decide that there's something really exciting that I want to get, or if there's a new brand or a new line that I wasn't aware of, and then I can sort of make adjustments. And to me, that's a successful trade show, is not falling behind the 8 ball in cash flow.
Right. And Mike, you could probably chime in a little bit because you're doing some of the retail side of things. Do you have kind of putting your retailer hat on? Do you have a kind of a game plan going into the trade show?
I mean, not really. I know who I'm going to buy with. It's going to be the same guys that I usually buy with. I'm not really dabbling into anybody new because you kind of already have your horses picked, right? I mean, Saka took all my money, that rat bastard. He did. It was good. It was a good plan. It was brilliant. I'm like, how much are we at? Like, God damn. Okay, fine. Your Foundation, your Fuentes, like all of them. So that was pretty much, it was just a given. You knew it was going to happen,
Right.
And the good manufacturers and brand owners know how to squeeze you just for a little bit more, right? It's like, really want those unicorns? I'm like, yes, I do.
All right, Steve and Pete, kind of what's your game plan heading into the trade show, or what were you planning, or what did you want to guess convey at the trade show, and were you able to kind of make that happen leading up to it?
Steve?
Look, I'm always running like a bastard to get to the trade show. No matter how much I think I'm prepared, I'm never prepared. I mean, I was in Nika the week before playing mule to bring samples up because stuff came DHL to get rejected by DHL to get sent back to Nicaragua. I mean, I'm already working on the projects for the next trade show. So for me, it's kind of like, fuck, I'm finally here. Can't wait to get it over with because you got to go to the next thing. So as anyone can attest to, I pretty much spend 3.5, well, really 4 days just completely drunk. So really the planning of 4 bottles that I'm going to have in my booth is probably the most important thing for me to do at the trade show, because I don't do any selling at the trade show. The cake is already baked for me. When I get there, it's all about my people, and hopefully I didn't screw them over and give them a lot of dogs to work with. And the other thing too that I do a lot at the trade show is I do a lot of media. And you guys know this. I do 18 to 20 media sit downs. I take advantage of that because they're all there. I'm there. I got all the new products to talk about. And that's another reason why I have to be drunk the whole time, because it's really hard to not say the same stupid shit 20 times in a row. So I have to try to have fresh, stupid shit to say 20 different times. So my approach to the trade show is, I don't know that it's the same as a lot of other manufacturers, because I'm really heavily focused on media and taking photos and kissing babies and all of that kind of stuff, more than the stuff that you would think somebody would be doing. Plus, too, the sales team, they don't want me talking anything about sales at all, because they know I'm going to end up alienating more customers than gaining. So the less I'm involved with the day-to-day grind of the accounts is probably the best.
All right, Pete, how about you?
I'm a little bit of the same, but I just kind of walk in circles most of the trade show. I mean, if you saw me, I mean, you guys ran into me a few times. I just keep on walking in circles and forget I have a meeting.
Right.
But it's never with meeting the retailers, because my brother and Dan and a few of the other guys take care of all that stuff. I usually feel like I get in the way, so I try to avoid being in the booth unless it's for the media stuff. But no, yeah, like Steve said, we go in going, okay, we're here. Thank God we had bands to put on the samples, and yeah, we have 2024 already ready. But let's figure out how to get out of this show with having a good time. And ultimately, you know, I'm there to talk to people and hang out and be bartender. When again, I usually get in the way trying to sell something,
Right.
or I'll get angry about selling something, which is never a good look inside of a trade show booth.
Sure. All right, Mike, again to you. What's your kind of lead in going into the trade show at the booth?
Well, I mean, I was really excited this year because of what I was releasing. And I unfortunately am a lot smaller than these guys. So I write all of my orders and deal with all the retailers, which is a double-edged sword because, you know, you get to have that experience at one-on-one time, which I appreciate. And then, but then sometimes you come across some of those retailers just like, get me the hell out of here, man. Why am I stuck talking to this dude? But in general, you know, I mean, I like to learn I feel like I have the same conversation every year, especially with Skip's like, all right, what do we do wrong? What can we fix? What can we do better? You know, and then hopefully you address all of those things before the next show. Now, I mean, the clock is ticking. It's going to be in March instead of July. So there's that. But, you know, a lot of these guys, they're so well seasoned that all the orders are pretty much done beforehand, or, you know, the appointments are ironed out. And, you know, your retailers are showing up and, you know, they're all the guys that are the good accounts for you. So, you know, I have some great accounts. I have some okay accounts, you know, so you got to go through all of it, unfortunately. And I get to experience every bit of it. So,
Yeah. All right, Coop, let's hit the media side. So leading into the trade show, what's your kind of strategy of going in there and how you want to tackle it? And you got to unmute yourself too.
There you go.
I know this is your
Rookie-
first time on a podcast, but
Right,
gotta be
exactly.
professional
Yeah,
here.
exactly. Yeah. Thanks, Aaron. Look, a couple of years ago, we added the video component. We weren't doing video until 2 years ago. And what we learned 2 years ago is video is expensive, video is time consuming. So our goal is, we've set some goals up front that we're not going to video every booze. Our goal is to hit about 70 booze and then 50 of those about video. And because we know sometimes we're just not going to catch someone in a booth or whatever. So we hit those goals this year, which was good. We were a man down this year for most of the show because Aaron Nielsen had to go home unexpectedly for family reasons. But I thought from the Coop team, we were the best prepared we ever were going into a show. Like there's always something that was going wrong beforehand. And this year I felt like we were pretty well prepared. And, you know, as far as that list goes, there's always someone, unfortunately, who's going to get missed, and it's unfortunate. And I try to catch up with people after the show we missed just to catch up. So it's not like we try to eliminate anyone, but we just learned very quickly we can't do every booth at the show. And the way we work is everyone has a specialized role at the booth. So there's 4 people with 4 different roles. So I think we did well this year as far as prep going into it.
Nice. And then Mike, you guys were kind of helping out some of the people on the podcast network, kind of getting some FaceTime with some the people that you already have relationships with.
yeah, you know, that was harder because there's just so much going on in the show, you know, so I didn't really have that in mind. That wasn't my intention, but you know, when they would circle around and meet people, they'd get nervous. I'm like, okay, bro, let's go. So I would leave and then introduce them to people because, you know, at the end of the day, everybody in this industry is pretty approachable. You know, we're all kind of in it for the same thing, and you just got to break that ice. So I have no problem going and saying, hey, this is so-and-so. And, you know, and they were really excited to meet Steve. And, you know, they really wanted to meet Nick and, you know, a handful of dudes that they felt a little intimidated by. So I had to run away real quick and go and make the introduction. So, you know, they're getting going. They're good guys, man. They have a great podcast. It's a lot of fun. They're cops up in Buffalo, which makes it even funnier. So anything I can do to help them, I'm always down with that.
Right. John, what did you do to prep for the show?
Less prep than I normally do, which was a little disappointing for me normally I like to go into the show with a list of booths and I'm pre-prepared with questions and a list of new cigars, et cetera, et cetera. And I feel like this year I was probably the least prepared I've been in a long time. And that's largely due to work. But fortunately, my partner, my cigar boss, is always prepared. So, you know, all I had to do is sling the camera around and take pictures, which was nice. But, you know, I think for us at Developing Palates, I think every year it's kind of, there's obviously the major brands we want to hit, and that's kind of a must do. And then we're always looking for, I don't want to say diamonds in the rough, but we're looking for the smaller brands that aren't necessarily getting the love from cigar media that they should be. And I want to credit Coop, because Coop sort of had this really great pilot project this year where he was doing feature articles on sort of brands under the radar. And I think that's really important, because the shelf life of a new brand can be very short, and they need, all the support and love they can get. So we're certainly able to do that, but it always feels like no matter how much walking we do on the floor, no matter how many booths we meet, I always kind of feel like we fall short. And I'm probably always going to feel that way. Even if we were to hit 700 exhibitors, I feel like we would still fall short. You know what I mean? What about you?
Yeah, I mean, my main focus going into the trade show is trying to be on top of everything that's been announced so far, so that I have an idea walking into a booth, what I want to look for, the new stuff that's announced, so that we can see it and we can ask questions towards that. So that's my main focus, is to be on top of that. And a lot of that's, I somehow keep it in my head, because I used to walk around with a list on paper, but I've kind of gotten away from that. So I feel like I'm staying on top of it. So that's kind of where I'm like walking in the booth and like, John, I'm kind of pointing you out, like this is what you should be shooting and stuff like that. But that's kind of my focus, is I just want to, see the new stuff, talk about the new stuff, but most of it's, us trying to keep, maintain relationships or create new relationships with brands that we haven't talked to before. So that's usually the focus kind of going into it for me. So yeah, I think that part of it went well. All right, so let's kind of get into the actual kind of start of the trade show. And this is not to discount what you guys do in regards to setup, because I know that's when the real kind of trade show stuff starts. But the kind of the seminar day that launches, the day before the trade show actually kind of kicks in. I know manufacturers, exhibitors are typically still setting up and things like that. They can't really attend that. But on the retail side, and I know on the media side, were you guys able to attend any of the kind of the seminar events leading up to the trade show? I know, Jay, I saw you there. So
yep.
Yeah. So start out with the JC Newman hand-rolled docuseries episode. I thought it was very well done, kind of very much in the same vein as the original hand-rolled documentary. Kind of had that same kind of flow and feel to it. Just curious, anybody else's thoughts on what they saw there?
Aaron, my thoughts were it was great, and if I was a cigar company, I'd be calling these guys, do it for my facility. I thought I knew JC Newman too, and there were things I learned out of that thing that I didn't know. So
right,
I thought it was excellent done, and from what I understand, it was a rough cut too. I thought it was a pretty good rough cut.
Yeah, I think Jesse said they were editing it till 2 or 3 in the morning, the night before, trying to get it ready to go.
They did a great job with it. Yeah.
So they'll fit right into the cigar industry, obviously. I don't know if you guys remember. I mean, I'm sure you remember when the original hand-rolled documentary came out. I thought it was possibly one of the most influential in terms of how people went into the show. They went into the show a lot more positive, because there could be a lot of sort of crankiness that day one, where people are settling in and feeling out the show, and you're not quite sure what kind of atmosphere you're going to get. And I feel like they kind of did that again this year, where they brought maybe too much positivity based on how people were dragging in the next morning. But, I thought it was a lot of great energy. And then you followed up with what I thought was 2 very well done blending seminars, which I wasn't quite sure what we're going to be in for. I mean, it was, obviously anytime you're giving out free cigars, people descend like locusts, but I think it did go beyond that, because I thought the panelists did a really good job. I mean, you've got some really, really, really smart and really high level people up on stage, and it's one of those things where you wish you could give them 4 hours, but they got to sort of pump it out in an hour. So given the time frame they had, I thought those seminars were very well received.
Yeah, in fact, normally when those seminars go on, sometimes you're like, get this person off. No one was doing that. These seminars were really keeping your interest the whole time. In fact, I wish they could have been longer in both cases.
Yeah, I felt like the attendance was quite high compared to previous years.
Yeah, they did a good job with that. Right? Yep, definitely.
Yeah, because I mean, especially when anything had to do with FDA or regulation, that was a ghost town in those sessions most of the time. But starting last year when they had the kind of the Fuente blending thing, that kind of pumped it up a lot. And then, like you said, John, I think free cigars. You get these guys to show up for anything if you just say that they're going to give you a cigar at the door. So
Gang tackle.
yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah, I thought the seminars were really good as well. I initially thought the Toscano one leading up to it was supposed to be more of a blending thing, but it was fine for what it was. Kind of a more of a commercial for the brand, which it's okay, I guess, if you're sponsoring something like that and doing that spot. But and then the panel with the guys up there after that was really good. I mean, obviously you have a ton of knowledge on the stage, and obviously you can talk about whatever. And Michael kind of moderating that does a great job. So that's just really well done. And you're gonna fill that hour pretty easily in that scenario. All right, after those, then they had the annual meeting that opened up, kind of the same kind of format as previously, kind of going over the financials, board members and things like that. Any thoughts on that? It just seemed kind of pretty much par for the course in regards to that type of a session.
Well, I'll say it. Just come out and say the reason why you went to New Orleans, right? I mean, they basically couldn't get Vegas, but they kind of went with this whole other spin with it, like why they were going with New Orleans. And I think everyone pretty much knew they couldn't get Vegas. And I just wish they would have said that. It just, to me, everyone just saw it was dancing at that point.
Well, could we not get Vegas, or was it the fact that they were looking for another venue? Because some people are getting tired of the same place every year. I mean, shit, we've been in Vegas for how many years now? And you remember they put out a mass, like, let's say email blast out to the stratosphere, and they wait for people to come back and say, yeah, we'll take you. And the reality is not a lot of people will take us. So, right. And I think people want to mix it up. I don't really know. Jay, you could answer this better. Can you tell us board secrets? Did they do New Orleans because they couldn't get Vegas, or was it because they needed a change of scenery?
I think it was a combination of things. There were some opportunities in Vegas, particularly with a multi-year contract with the Sands around July 4th. And there were a couple other venues that just didn't quite work. And the Las Vegas Convention Center they're updating that, so that limited some things. I will say this, that when Scott Pierce and Greg Zimmerman went to wrap up the 2024 show plans in Vegas, and they went to New Orleans, they came back on cloud nine. They had a very positive visit. New Orleans is willing to work with us. I will just say anecdotally, and this is not the position of the board, but people are complaining about about New Orleans because there's no place to smoke after the trade show. Where in Vegas can you smoke? I have sore feet still from standing at Bar Luca and dealing with rude waitresses. So the options of smoking in Vegas aren't that great. I mean, I could spend a half an hour and walk over to Treasure Island, and they have their service is really apathetic. So I think that there's some things that New Orleans wants to do for us. And one thing that we've learned is change is good. I think if things were perfect, we do 7 or 8 years out of every 10 in Vegas, and then a couple of years someplace else. And right now, New Orleans, unlike a lot of places, is willing to work with us.
I will say, Jay, I do appreciate that I know, Coop, you get a little frustrated sometimes when we're too focused on sort of 2 years down the road instead of the next year. But I do appreciate that the conversation is, we're not just talking about the next trade show. We're talking about sort of the roadmap of, 2 years down the road, and then kind of thinking ahead 3 years down the road, because obviously as media, for us, it's not super complicated. It's not super complicated. You get on a plane, you get there. For the exhibitors, it's a whole different thing. You need to be thinking about this stuff 12, 18, 24 months in advance. So, if you can kind of get a sense of, okay, well, it's coming up in March, it's going to be a quick turnaround. However, now to plan for April in New Orleans in 2025. And that gives you perhaps a little bit of extra breathing room to sort of think about your strategy, and, some time to sort of work on that, which I think that's positive. That's forward looking. I think in that way is a good way to handle it, even if I might disagree with New Orleans.
I actually don't think it matters because the good retailers are going to go wherever the show is. Good people come to the show because they understand the importance of the show. So therefore, if it's in Vegas, the good people are coming to Vegas. If it's in New Orleans, the real people that are actively part of the industry. I know there's a lot of doors, there's a lot of people that sell cigars, but there aren't a lot of tobacconists left in the world anymore, or people that actually care about the products they curate and put in their shops. And honestly, look, the food's fantastic in New Orleans. My complaint to Scott is not, it's not even a complaint. My issue has always been the same. If we're going to New Orleans, can we please stay in New Orleans another year? Okay, because it just costs so much to move everything, the logistics of it all. So I'm happy to be in New Orleans for 2-3 years, then go someplace else. I just don't, luckily I have one of the lighter booths. Pete, your booth has gotten much lighter. You're kind of that way, but I mean, it's gonna, like, I already know that like all my Bob's Discount furniture, it's going in the trash after the trade show next year. I'm gonna go buy what, I guess give me a Cajun name. I need a Cajun names discount furniture, and I'm gonna go to New Orleans. I'm gonna buy new cheap leather sofas and new cheap dining room tables there. You know what I mean? So for me, it's like you said, John, the planning part is really important because the costs are crazy. I mean, and I gotta tell you, this July 4th thing, you have no idea what a crusher it is for the manufacturers. I spent literally to ship stuff to the trade show to hit the target dates because of the holiday. I spent over $14,000 in freight and shipping expenses to get stuff to the trade show on target and time. Now, part of that's because I'm running behind, so part of that's my fault. But another part is just having that holiday, like literally the day before you're supposed to absolutely hit a target date for moving, is just a logistical nightmare. And it's been that way so bad. So going to the spring, I'm happy to go to Cleveland. I'm happy to go to Topeka. I'm happy to go to a field in the middle of South Dakota. You know what I mean? I think good people that are part of our industry are going to go wherever the trade show is. And Lord knows none of us don't like to eat, and damn, the food is fine in New Orleans. So I'm going to enjoy it.
Abe?
We have the inside track guys with Ben, with the food.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna have that.
I just been saying that forever. I mean, I think the real retailers are going to go and treat it like business, like it's supposed to be. And whether it's in New Orleans or Vegas or whatever, if you're going to go, you're going to go. I think Steve's on point with that. I'm just a little concerned because there's an expected extra 1 million people there that weekend. That's a lot of people for a small town. They got the French Quarter Festival that weekend, and that's a big influx for that town. So that's my only concern for 2025. I could care less about anything else. I just think it was going to make everything a little bit more hectic than it already is for that town.
You may get a little bit of a heads up on that for Vegas because it's March Madness for the show next year as well. So you get to see what that added chaos is like, I guess, heading into it.
No, the thing about Vegas is it's really spread out in a lot of different places. Yeah. So March Madness is going to happen everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's going to be an influx of a lot of people, but spread out probably in 15 different locations.
Yeah.
New Orleans is not that big.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had the Summer League again in Vegas, and we had a fight weekend in Vegas. You don't feel it in Vegas because it's so big.
Yeah.
But New Orleans, like Abe is saying, is super tiny.
And they're expecting almost 1 million people for that festival.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, here's the saving grace, Abe, is I'm sure that the PCA blocked off a big old block of rooms, and we won't be paying that extra 1 million people price point. Hopefully, Jay.
I'll ask Jay this question: why was Palm Sunday 2 years in a row for the trade show? It's going to be. Because in my part of the country, that's kind of a big deal for people. It's 2 Palm Sundays in a row.
Are people only religious in your part of the country?
Well,
wow.
No, but I'm just saying.
I'm just curious.
I'm just saying, at least in my part of the country, it's been a point of discussion already.
Talk to the people at Dortmund. They complain about it overlapping on the Jewish holiday every year.
True.
Yeah, true. That's true. Fair point.
Yeah.
Well, I know one of the dates was Easter, so we avoided that. I don't know. I mean, there's 1 million different permutations and things that we have to deal with. I think one thing that we were behind the 8 ball on is after COVID, we were trying to refigure out what we wanted to do as an organization. And I think we've seen the positive benefits of that in the show. But a negative of that is that we allowed a lot of other organizations and associations to lock up a lot of dates. So after COVID, there was a mad rush. So we didn't have as many dates to choose from. So all I can say is going forward, Coop, I think having 24 and 25, the ink is dry. And now we can start focusing on 26, 27, 28, that we'll be in a little bit better position. We'll have more choices.
Right. Fair point.
That's a good answer.
That's a good answer. I buy it. You sold me, Jay.
Jay, the intent is to try to keep us on this spring to spring schedule, right?
Yeah, the idea is to have the trade show in late March through mid-April for the foreseeable future.
All right, cool.
And me personally, I prefer mid-April, but sometimes the dates dictate what the dates do. But ideally, you can think April 15th, right around tax time. We don't have anything to do as business owners on March 15th or April 15th. It'll be right around tax time when we're going to be.
I've already had my
doing these
fake
shows.
books done months before. You can't do that last minute. So
And I do mine in September.
All right. So after the annual meeting was the keynote speaker, Oz Perlman. Jay, did you stick around for that?
I watched most of it. He was pretty good. I did not know who he was. I had no expectation. He was not somebody that I wanted, but the board wanted him. And I was pretty entertained. I thought it was great. I think comedy is a good thing. So I thought that he was great and exceeded my expectations for sure.
And was the attendance still pretty good in that session?
Yeah, it was decent.
Okay, good. All right. After the keynote, it was a little bit of a break, and then the opening gala. What was it?
I was frozen. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. No worries. And Steve, I know you were one of the sponsors of that event. So thank you for doing that. That's always appreciated.
Well, you have to really thank Eric Espinoza. He's the one that jumped on the grenade and committed to it, and then he tried to find 3 other idiots to split the cost with. So I just happened to be the first idiot that agreed, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, Aaron,
listen.
Go ahead. I was Garen, John, go ahead. I was gonna make a request.
I was just gonna say, but hey, was anyone else like honestly in a positive way shocked, surprised at just how many people showed up for that welcome gala? Because I gotta
tell you what, we as the 4 exhibitors were blown away. It was
never like that. Yeah.
I don't remember there being that many people. But first off, can we stop calling it a gala? Because that's just that's a little bit too much. That's a little bit too much. A little bit too much frill on this cake. But I mean, I there may have been 50% more people, but there was at least 400 more people in that room than I can remember in the last decade. I mean, we were really, really woefully unprepared for the size of that crowd. I mean, there was just no way to anticipate it because you have all these years of history. Anything, what are you going to get? 10% more? And I mean, I think we handled it as well as it could be. Obviously, there was a big problem with the line, because you're trying to control the flow. I think the biggest problem was the Guy Fieri thing at the end, because everybody wanted their photo with Guy, and that was really slowing it up. So if we participate again next year, which I hope we're invited again to do, I think we're going to talk very seriously about maybe breaking the 4 stations up.
Yeah.
So it's
consult Abe. He knows how to get rid of lines. Trust me.
Yeah, I mean,
At the Great Smoke. Yeah.
It's one of those things you're trying to figure out. How do you prevent double dipping? How do you make sure everybody gets everything? How do you treat the 4 sponsors evenly? I mean, there's a lot of things to try to figure out. Luckily, the 4 sponsors, we were all very mellow, right? So there was not like any, I mean, we're all peacocks, but there's like no dicks in the group. You know what I mean? Matt Booth is super chill. Eric's chill. I'm kind of like, yeah, whatever. You know what I mean? And then of course you got quality. So it was good in that respect that we didn't have to worry about somebody outshining someone else, because everybody was kind of like, hey, whatever happens, happens. So that part was great. It was really a good group of 4. I think it also gave a good product mix. So I don't think any of us stepped on any of the others. And I was blown away by the attendance, really. I mean, what, it's supposed to end at 8 and they like shut the lights off at 8. They let it go to like 8:50 this year, right? They kept it going for like another 50 minutes because they just couldn't kick people out of the room.
Because it's 8. And nothing should ever end at 8.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised by the number of people that were there, but that line, I mean, I think we left it like an hour and 15, hour 20 minutes into it, and like people were still like almost to the door in the line, waiting to kind of go
There
through.
were people still in that line almost to the door till like 8:30 at night.
Wow.
What line?
The line, yeah, it was.
I use my media thing because here's the thing. I didn't use my media thing to go cut the line and get cigars, but I did
course
get
you did.
pictures. I was handed some, but no, I said, hey, can I'm not gonna wait an hour and a half to take pictures for this thing. And I was taking pictures. So they did let me do that. And I appreciated that. But no, I did not cut in front of someone to get a cutter, a lighter, or a
Do
cigar.
you know who I am? I
Yeah.
am.
You were like the night at
Well,
the
I saw you online,
walking
Mike. I
through.
didn't see you use your media privilege.
Backstage pass.
That's
I
right.
didn't get in the line. I waved and harassed everybody, but that was it.
I tried to go to Juan Cancel on the back end. He was like, Juan was like serious, man. He was in not your normal Juan mode. He was in serious Juan mode, like security mode. See the Coop. I can't do anything. I'm sorry. He's like,
It was a hell of a turnout, man. I think it was.
it
great.
was. I think it was good I think it was good. I agree.
And the open bar, I think a lot of people were really, really happy with that. I think that worked fantastic, and it's good to see that PCA has heard some things and they're trying to make some adjustments. I mean, we got a lot of road to cover, but it's definitely a step in the right direction instead of the same old song and dance that we saw year after year after year, right?
Now I understand, Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the PCA is still fighting them on that bar tab because I think they actually counted like 1,700 people, and there wasn't 1,700 people in that room.
No,
there was maybe 1,000, 1,100.
I don't want to make an illegal admission, but last year we were like 1,502. So based on that, it's had to be close to 2,000 people.
It was nuts.
But they figured something out with that. I think I'm not sure all the details, and I'll agree with. Is it okay on Facebook to say clusterfuck? I think that the line situation could have been done better.
No, you can't say it.
Oh,
you can't say clusterfuck.
Let me say this: once the line,
the attendance.
Once the line happened, there was no way to fix it in the middle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So once you committed to this plan, you quickly realized about 20 minutes in that, this was a bad idea. There was like no way
got an answer.
to fix it.
When I said
we could have done better on that, but I will say this: that there was a lot more seating than in the last couple of years, and the food was good and the bar service is good. So I thought it was a major upgrade, but obviously we could do better on the line, and we will. Pierce and other people were definitely getting information and feedback on how to improve it.
Call Abe. I'm telling you, call Abe. He knows how to have no lines.
I mean, look, I got to admit,
Abe, we have people running for the board every year. You're welcome to run again.
No, thank you.
he's gonna run for the gala board. That's it.
As a member of good standing, you can just work on a committee just for the open gala.
No, thank you. Appreciate it. No, I mean, look, I gotta be honest. I go to the not gala every year, and I usually sneak out really early or whatever. And I did not make it this year, and I feel really bad because I heard nothing but great things. But this year, unlike any other year, I actually had commitment and work to do in setting up our project that Pete and I have for the Tatuaje Anarchy. So I literally landed on the plane, didn't go to my room, went to the trade show floor, worked there and setting that up. Been traveling since 6:30, hadn't eaten, hadn't showered, and then as I'm leaving it, at whatever time that closed, what was it, 6:30? By the time we walked out of there, I see this line wrapping all the way down the hall. I'm like, I'm not going to make it to the opening parties here. But I heard a lot of good things. I mean, look, when you get slammed with way over more than what you expected, you're always going to have. I mean, you can't think ahead. You're always going to have it, and it's really hard to make adjustments on the fly. I mean, I remember one year during the Great Smoke, we were in that situation. I'm like, if we don't do something, people aren't going to get in before the event's over. but like I can make that call by myself. I don't have to do it. I literally just set up a mid station in the middle of the thing, and we called 4 guys and we just made a mock check-in station. We just started checking people in real quick. You can't do that when you have a PCA board. It's easy when you're flying solo to make a decision, whatever you want to do, and do it on yourself. So I think having people there, I think having Guy Fieri makes a difference. Guy Fieri is undoubtedly a draw. He is
Absolutely.
undoubtedly a man of presence that people want to see. And thank God for us, he's awesome with the people. He's not one of these guys with a cold shoulder, or you could tell doesn't really want to be there. And that is an asset for us in our industry, not just for events like these, but just even on the consumer level. So I think that is a testament to the days of old when CA used to pull a lot of its weight and get a lot of people involved in a trade show from sports or Hollywood, that people like to see that, and especially when somebody like
give the PCA credit too. They understand that without the big 4 there, there's nobody that can float that opening gala tab. It's too big a sponsorship bill for one of us companies to support. So letting us carve it into 4 companies like they did, it makes it possible. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I mean, it's still expensive for a company like me, but it's doable. And I actually think it makes it better because there was more variety. It was more interesting because everybody brought something different.
I
Agree.
agree.
I agree
Yeah.
with that too.
Totally
Yeah.
agree.
No,
I don't know who they're gonna have to do it next year, but I think they should stay with a format of 4 exhibitors. You know what I mean? I think it makes it, I just think it makes it better. And like Jay said, having more seating kept people around, having positive energy in the room kept people around. Maybe there weren't that many more people, but the people never left, right? You didn't get as many people dipping in for 20 minutes
true.
and then bouncing out because there were plenty of bars, there was plenty of food, there was plenty of drink, there was a lot of activity. It was a good opening party.
I heard a lot of great things. Like I said, I really regretted not being able to make it this year, but I heard a lot of good things. Like I said, the only thing I heard anybody really complain about was the line, which is just one of those things. You
And
get
even the line was kind of a
sideways.
feature because it kind of was like, wow, can you believe this line? You know what I mean? I was like, wow, can you believe this? We haven't had this in forever.
That helps with the vibe going into the show, though.
Yeah.
It
When
does.
people start talking about it, I had a hard time getting into the gala or the not gala, and that really helps with the hype of the show. I think it's a good thing for the industry when people feel like they, the retailers, when they come to the show and they feel like they got something out of the show, and just instead of just having to commit a lot of money to buying product, they felt what I heard at the trade show is a lot of retailers felt like they actually got a little bit back, which is really nice because it took a long time for our trade show to fix that portion, where there were nights back in the old days where there was nothing to do. People were like scrambling to go to a dinner. Like, hey, can I get on your dinner? Can I get on your meetup that you're having? Now it's like the PCA is actually offering things for the retailers to do, which is refreshing to see.
I agree.
Yeah, a lot of the evening events, I didn't go to any because I'm old, but those seem to be very well received as well.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask you're talking about the after dark, Jay?
Yeah,
We did an after dark, and we did one after dark, and we were there for the whole time. It was busy.
Yeah.
It was nice. I mean, it was a pretty small bar, but honestly, it was pretty packed, and it was a good time.
Nice. That was where retailers could buy tickets and get like discounted or open bars for those sessions, kind of a thing.
Yeah, they could buy open bar wristbands, I guess, and as long as those people behind the bar saw the wristband, they got free drinks. I didn't have a wristband, so I had to pay for my drinks.
Interesting.
That might explain why you were at the booth when we rolled in at 10 a.m. and perhaps some retailers didn't make that 10 a.m. call the next morning. Maybe IV station at the end of the gala might be of assistance for some of the retailers at the end of the night.
John, I was only up because I was up at 6 a.m. to watch the F1 race.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Dedicated.
Though, Pete, I hear that Lava was serving the coffee after the last course now for your meal.
No, I can't drink coffee anymore, so it's okay that they're
Oh.
not pouring it that night anyways.
Like one of the afterward things that I went to this year, I don't think it was widely publicized, but Espinosa had a storytelling night.
Yeah.
And it was actually quite good. You know, there was a good group of storytellers in there. I mean, there were a couple that sucked, but I won't name any names. I mean, but it was nice. It wasn't a lot of people, like maybe what, 7 people might.
Yeah, it was just a handful of guys, you know, it was a really good, it really was.
Yeah.
For sure.
I saw pictures so I can guess the people, but I'm not going to say their names.
Yeah. I mean,
Coop,
I mean,
Coop made us leave early,
great
so we couldn't stay.
storyteller, Eric
I made them leave.
Espinosa.
I made them leave early. I had enough of Skip that day.
Oh,
I'm just kidding, but
I
Oh,
knew
no,
Oh, come on. There was far worse than Skip.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, come on.
No, yeah, I made them. Well, no, I offered to just leave you guys the car. You guys said you're going back, so
Yeah. We were
I
being
did
nice.
offer. I did offer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was
You gotta
sorry.
know what to call it. You know what I mean? Like you can get if listen, if Skip and Saka are in the building, it could be super late evening. Just
Yeah.
you know, those two guys holding court.
Yep.
So you gotta know when it's like, all right, I gotta get out of here.
I
You know?
bounced right around midnight because I got a whole day of drinking ahead of me. So I gotta pace myself, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, that Espinosa thing was really nice. I thought they did a good job with that. And it's a little different than a lot of the ones we go to as media because it's one company kind of doing it. And Espinosa kind of opened it up to everybody. I think the media guys were there first, and then some of the other guys came in later. So I think they did a good job with that.
Well, it checks a lot of boxes. No loud music, so you can actually have a conversation.
Yeah.
Lots of seating, so you can, we're not spring chickens anymore. When I go to one of those things, I need to sit down. I want to sit
Yeah.
down and have a cigar and a libation. I
Right.
don't really want to move for the next few hours. And that checked every box. Plus, it was the second best meal we had at the entire PCA.
The pizza.
tell ya.
This was not the year of the food for PCA. I can tell you that.
You know, here's what's kind of crazy to me is it seems like to me, as far as brand owners and manufacturers, like a lot of bullshit has been kind of set aside. And there's definitely, I felt like there was a lot more camaraderie with everybody. And that was awesome for me to see that, because at the end of the day, yeah, there is competition and stuff, but we're all working together, man, and nobody wants to screw somebody else over. So it was cool to just kind of see all the little bickering and stuff that I've seen throughout, a decade, just kind of be like, hey, whatever, man, everything's all good. And we're all just kind of having a good time. I really like that. I thought that was probably one of the best things that I saw from the PCA, from this year's show.
It's one of the things I like most about this industry, man. Really, for the most part, people get along. If you're not getting along with other people, typically you need to look inside and pretty much think it's you and know what's going on.
Yeah.
For the most part, we all kind of really get along. And yeah, we're all in the same business. We all compete, but there's this open mindset. And I think there's always a few people who get bent and, don't get it and whatever. And, they're always just fighting with everybody. But no, that's the part I really like about this industry. Jay and Mike, we're all like, we're really friends. I mean, Mike and I, we've been running each other, our families during summer break, right? Universal hanging out. I mean, it's really the beauty part of this industry. And I feel bad for the guys who really don't get it.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, just an observation. I don't know how you guys felt, but I think the last, 4 or 5 trade shows, there's always been like the FDA or the Big Four pulling out, or is the PCA going to collapse? This is the first trade show I've walked into in a while where it was just fun. I mean, just no reservations. It reminded me of being a newer retailer. The shows in 2010, 2014, 2016, where it was all positive. I mean, yeah, there are a couple of things here and there, but it was light. And I really felt that this year.
I think it's just the fact that we see improvements now.
Yeah.
Where every year it seemed like it's getting worse, it's getting worse, it's getting worse. And now for the last 3 shows, we're seeing changes that are like, oh, this is a positive change. And oh, there's a positive change. And oh, here's a change. We don't know if it's positive or not positive, but you're building to be more open-minded because you're seeing these other things start to click. And that helps a lot, man. It puts everybody in a much better mood.
Agree. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right, so
some
we finally
inside
get-
baseball.
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
So
I
we
was just
finally
saying,
get to
one of
the. All right, go ahead, Jay. I'll stop.
No,
I'm
you, no,
sorry. One of the things.
No,
that
let's go.
excited me
Let's
that-
just start
that-
talking,
that-
all
There
of
we go.
us.
Just start talking. Okay. So Tuesday
I'm
morning.
gonna use the
we had
buzzer,
an
Jay.
eight-
I'm gonna use the buzzer.
Tuesday- Screw it. It's not that important if you want to hear it.
No, go ahead. I'm just kidding.
this is me shutting down. I'm shutting down.
So Tuesday morning, 8 a.m., we have a PCA meeting, and thank God it's only an hour. But one thing that blew me away is they put up the map of the trade show floor, and it was full with like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 10 by 10s. Then I realized it was a 2024 show. I just sat there flabbergasted of how many booths have already been reserved. Next year is going to be incredible. And that was great energy. I know the last couple of years, we look at the trade show floor coming up for the next show, and there were a lot of holes. Everything's pretty much rented already. And that was fantastic to see. And part of it's the 8-month thing, but I think part of it too is, like Steve said, we're going from strength to strength.
Instead of giving away shirts, though, I think it'd be wise for people to start investing in zip-up hoodies for March, because I think the whinging is gonna sway very sharply from it's too hot outside to it's too cold outside. So it'll be interesting to see, the Miami, Nicaragua, Dominican contingent to see, it's not 110 outside, but now maybe it's 55. So we'll see how comfortable that is for people. I think it's going to be a much improved smoking situation, even if it is a little on the chilly side.
Yeah, because
I
I can
would
sit
much
out on the
rather-
curb and smoke a cigar and not sweat the
Exactly.
balls off.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Havana Cellar hoodies for everybody at the show. What do you think, Pete?
No.
Let's make sure there's a medium, would you?
Me. Double
All right.
XL, baby.
So we finally get to the trade show itself. So I know the exhibitors already have a kind of a lay of the land from setup and stuff like that. So they've got kind of see this whole thing kind of start from scratch. But for those of us that came in after, what were your kind of initial thoughts seeing kind of the floor, walking in, kind of what the layout looked like, what the booth sizes maybe look like? Any kind of initial thoughts when you walked in the first time?
I like to start with this. I'd like
Go
to
ahead.
personally thank the Padrones because they took my spot because they got the pick before me, which moved me to that really, really crappy location, which was delightfully perfect. So thank you to the Padrones. I owe you.
It seemed anecdotally like there was I mean, obviously we lost some sort of gigantic booths, and I was kind of anticipating a lot of smaller booths, but I felt like what we saw was a lot more mid-sized booths, which kind of surprised me. Like I would say, if you're looking at the average, there seemed to be a lot more sort of mid-sized booths across the trade show floor, which kind of surprised me. I noticed that right off the hop when we walked in, because you can kind of see that walking down the aisles, that there's lots of kind of interspaced little booths and then some gigantic booths. And this seemed to be, especially on the right side and the center, way, way more mid-sized booths to me.
Who did you feel had a gigantic booth?
Well, in the past, you'd see, for
In
example,
past, I mean, this show. Who
in
did
the
you-
past.
Oh,
No, in this
Padron had a
show,
huge
no,
booth.
Rocky
Padron's
had
the
a
only one with a
Rocky's
huge booth.
Rocky's
Padron,
with
Rocky.
Rocky.
Rocky's booth is still
Wait,
pretty
did
big.
someone say Padron?
Yeah,
That's not a big booth. That's not
Yeah,
a
but,
gigantic
but
booth.
here's the funny part, Abe.
it's not a
It
gigantic booth.
wasn't a big booth by past, but now Padron's one of the largest booths there.
Yeah.
Right, but that's not a gigantic booth. That's been their booth forever, and it's not gigantic. If you're
Remember
looking going
General's
back
how
in-
big?
General's old Altus has been dabbing
Yeah.
off booths.
Yeah.
It was
Jewish
half an
neighbors.
aisle.
Right.
Yeah,
You know,
Jewish
it
Name was
had-
like 2 football fields, right?
Yeah, I mean,
It was like
it's
literally a
really-
tram to get from one end to the other.
Look, I've said it for a long time. I think the bonsai plant grooming of the booths will lead to an overall better experience on the floor. Spreading everybody across 4 miles of footage doesn't benefit anybody really. I think like even Altus booth, which I mean, probably one of the bigger ones above average, but still
Yeah.
minuscule compared to what they would have in the past. I think it's healthy. I think it was good for the show. I think the show felt like it was more action going on. There was a lot of action going on the first day, the second day, third day it began to dwindle, and the fourth, the half day was dead. So now they're getting rid of the half day. It solves that problem. And I think getting rid of the half day will, I think, increase what's going on the third day too, because there are people who are stretching out what they have to do, and now they're going to have to work in a more condensed time frame. I mean, I'll tell you what, I was literally meeting with people till the closing call on the half day. So, but then again, I'm walking around more laid back. I stop and bullshit with Steve for a little bit. I'll stop and talk to Pete for a little bit. So, it probably will get me on a more regimented time frame. But, I think things are moving in a better direction as far. Because I've said it before, if you have this massive, massive show, this massive, massive floor, and I'm a new guy coming in, right? And no one walks by my booth like in the whole day, which was possible in the past. Like, so someone could have not walked down that whole aisle that whole day. You're blaming the trade show. But if it's more condensed and more healthy, and people are walking by all day, but people ain't stopping and interacting with them, then they look internally and what am I doing wrong? Why can't I get into this traffic to come in and see me? So I like the smaller footprint. I really do.
And I think a big part of it too, Abe, is I don't think that we feel the need to peacock the booths the way it was like 20 years ago when we had the boom and everything got super crazy. I mean, look at Perdomo's booth today compared to what they used to have. They didn't do any less business in that booth, right? Pete isn't doing less business in his booth. His booth is a lighter design than it used to be. I started off with a lighter design because I had the experience at Drew Estate, what a nightmare doing that was and how much it cost. It was just absurd. I think everybody's starting to take the amount of space they actually need to do business and not worrying as much about how it looks. Now, people like Padron, they've got this huge investment in this booth. They'll probably keep that forever because they probably spent $8 billion on it and it's gorgeous. But I mean, I think, and the other thing too is for the retailers, it's better too, because they don't have to walk as far.
Okay.
Everything. So for the retailer, it's better. And for the manufacturers, it's better too. And I was always of the belief that it was a big mistake of the PCA, and I understand it was the way they earned money. But when they let the big four grow into these booths, it then forced my father and it forced Ashton to make their booths bigger because they didn't want to seem like they were falling behind those guys. And so you had really a lot of booths that just got so oversized that it made the show impossible to walk and work.
And when it was in the time where they were allowing the ancillary businesses like the vape and the hookah and stuff, I swear to God, I remember not even being able to see where it ended.
Right.
Like I'm looking down the hall, I'm like, where's the end of this show? I mean, now anywhere I stand in the show, I can actually see all four walls of the expo. So I think it's healthier overall for all aspects of it.
That will be an interesting question when they come back in 2024. I mean, Jay, you would know this because you've already seen the map, but I'm assuming that the big three that are already announced to come back, they're not planning on doing those mega booths again, are they? I'm assuming they've kind of scaled it to a more reasonable size.
They didn't look huge. I mean, probably like the size of the Fuente or the Padron booth. Maybe
Right.
maybe not even as large as the Gurkha booth.
But that's
Respectable.
appropriate, right?
Yeah.
Look, Rocky's booth is big, but given the amount of business he does, it's appropriately sized.
I got one question. When it comes to now that day 4 is gone, which I'm glad that it is gone, well, how's the breakdown going to play out? Can you do that?
I've been thinking about this a lot. We always needed that fourth day, not so much for sales. Look, when you're small, like when we were beginning, we did a lot of orders on the fourth day. We've been blessed to start to become a day 1, day 2 company. And now we're a day 3 coming 2 because of appointment limitations. Day 4 for us, I don't think we wrote more than maybe $150,000 on day 4. And we would have scooped that up on the phone anyways after the fact. The problem is you don't want to end up in overtime with the union breakdown labor. What I like about this is I'm still going to go. There's still going to be a day 4 of the show for me, and it's going to be dedicated for breakdown. So what'll end up happening is we will go away on day 3 and go do whatever we're going to do that night and have our company dinner and enjoy ourselves. And then the next day we'll roll in around 10 a.m. and we'll do the breakdown on day 4. And that'll be better because it's such a pain in the ass. You're just waiting those 4 hours to start breaking down. And then you're in a mad dash to break down. So as an exhibitor, it isn't going to save me a day, but I think it's going to actually make my schedule easier for my people to actually go back on the 4th day. And this is all we do on day 4. And the other thing that'll be nice about it too is we end up throwing a lot of shit away we shouldn't be. We end up packing up a lot of stuff that we shouldn't have packed. It'll actually give us a moment to stop without all the retailers still on the floor, still talking to us. I mean, day 4, I mean, Pete, I'm drunk. Pete's wanting to talk. Abe's wanting to talk. Everyone wants to talk. Now we'll have a day where all we do is we go in and we organize and we break down after we got a night's sleep. So, and we won't be in the union hours because we're not going to do it at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. And I love the fact that this is going to be 3 days long. And then on the 4th day, we're going to break down. And I assume that's what you're going to do, Pete, right?
Well, yeah, as long as it is what, I mean, if they're allowing day 4 for us to come back in the morning to do that, that would be nice. But a lot of these guys breaking down booths, they want to, especially the workers that come and help, they want to close this shit up quick. They might not want to be there the next day. That's my biggest fear about day 4 being gone.
Right.
But I agree with you, Steve. I don't like the idea of like day 3 and then it's 9 o'clock and we're still packing our booth with overtime.
With overtime, that'll be, but I'm assuming, Jay, because look, there's always been a day. So even at the PCA, we don't have to break down on day 4. Day 5 is still open to break down because the big guys can't break down that day, all of it, right? So I'm assuming we're still going to have an extra day to break down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be much better. As far as I'm concerned, I like that way better because I don't have to stress my staff out because they've had a hard 3 days doing the trade show. Because the trade show begins a week before. We're at the trade show 3-4 days before the opening day of the trade show. So they've already been there for 3+ days doing their job. And then you have 3 hard days of the trade show. And then you're trying to crush in that breakdown at the last minute. I like the fact that we can go to bed and get up the next morning and do the breakdown.
And by that time you had 5 days of insobriety, man. It's brutal.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about sales from the exhibitor side. Go ahead.
I don't want to let us lead too much into positive town. So I want to take a little bit of negative town there because I do have the media hat on. So I just want to say, wearing the PCA trade member hat, I think killing the 4th day makes complete sense. It's a cost saver. I think the 4th day was a bit of a throwaway. People have been saying for a long time, the 4th day really doesn't need to be there. But I will say from the media perspective, it's going to have an impact for us. And I think, Coop, you can probably talk a lot to this, especially at this trade show. That 4th day is really critical for us to get some of the big booths that were slammed.
And I agree with that,
days.
John, because I'm still doing all media appointments on the 4th day, but the PCA could fix this for you. They can let you come in a day earlier during the setup because most of the principals aren't as involved in the setup. And I'd be happy to do some things on the Friday before the trade show opens. I'd be okay with that. You guys, I don't find that you're in the way personally.
We even talked about this in KMA. I think it should be able to come on during the exhibit hours as well, get that extra hour before retailers hit the floor.
I think you solve it just by doing the hours of 10 to 6 for the trade show and early entry for media and the pay to play or however they wanted to do it. So you do a 9 to 6 show, and you overall you lose 1 hour without that last 4th day.
And we asked for that at the media press conference too, because look, I agree the 4th day was critical for us, but look, it also was a dead day, and a lot of times we would go to booths and the principals wouldn't even be there because there's no one there, so they're walking the floor. So I kind of get it. I think they gave that half day everything possible, but if some concessions could be made to get some of those extra hours or even the day before, I think we can probably mitigate all that. But I think we need some help with that. Otherwise, we're just gonna have less coverage. That's all I can say is there's people who are getting complained they don't get coverage now. That there's gonna be more people complaining with it.
Yeah, I know that Antoine was talking with a lot of people about figuring out some ideas before the show, and I'm not sure what you guys do after 6 o'clock, but I found myself on the floor till 7:30 most days, anyways, and that's some time you can scoop up as well. It's kind of nice that they don't throw you out at 5:59 like they used to.
No, I mean let's just leave it at that.
I will say the Las Vegas Convention Center, my experience there is they're a little bit more sticky on the end of the daytime. We were in our booth almost every day until close to 8 o'clock most nights. And at the Las Vegas Convention Center, they give you about an hour grace, and then they're like, okay, you got to get the hell out of here. So just keep that in mind. They're not as
Yeah.
flexible.
Well, remember that the trade show technically closes at 6, but the PCA booth is open till 7. So I think we'll get at least that hour of grace, even from the Las Vegas Convention Center.
Okay, cool.
Now, 8 o'clock, I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, let's head into the sales, and we're not looking for numbers from you guys, so don't sweat that piece. But John and I think a lot of the conversations we had with exhibitors was, day one was a good day of sales, but for a lot of people, they said day two was even that much better. Did you guys kind of get kind of
$1
experience
billion.
that? Yeah.
$10 million trades was sold on day one.
Billion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect answer.
I haven't been
You
shy
nailed
about
it, Darren.
it. We had a crazy good trade show. We just did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We beat our numbers by double of what our goal was going into the show. For Dunbarton, this was a breakover year. I mean, it really was. I mean, it was crazy. I already have to set my expectations much lower for next year, because I don't think we can achieve that again. I mean, we had day one for us was the best, which as a small company, you always want to move up the progression, right? You start off as a day 3, day 4 company, and then you're hoping to get more on day 2, and then you're dreaming of getting day 1. Now, luckily, I get to be day 1 now because the other big 3 aren't there. Maybe next year, because they're there, maybe I get demoted back to being the day 2 company. I don't know.
I don't think so.
I hope from your mouth to God's ears, but I mean, but for us, it was a really good trade show, and part of it too is I was kind of like in the Bermuda Triangle of dollars there. The way that worked with Espinoza having Guy Fieri, and then I had Nicholas right to my left, and then it was me. So we had a really happening little spot there. So we really, and we were right at the very front. I mean, other than Gurkha, Gurkha was the first thing you saw when we came to the door, but then from then on, we were in a great place. So yeah, we had a stupid good trade show.
For me, day one, I wrote more orders, but they were smaller in comparison to day 2. Like day 2, I had more of my, accounts that are fully supportive, and they're just like, yeah, I'll take the package, take whatever, Whereas day 1, I had more smaller accounts and more new guys that were kind of picking and choosing, just seeing, kind of getting their toe in the water and determining what they wanted to buy.
Mhm.
So day 2 was a lot easier. I had less people on day 2, but I had more bigger package deals. So.
Okay.
Did any of you observe kind of a traffic drop off after 4 o'clock on the first day? Because there seemed to be, and I don't know if there's some cocktail events going on.
Yeah.
But it sort of seemed to thin out a little bit after 4 o'clock. So I wasn't sure whether that was just anecdotal or what was going on there. Did you guys see any of that in your booths?
I didn't, because we had appointments booked, right? So
And you were really drunk at that time, come 4 o'clock.
yeah, so I don't have to pay attention at all, but because we had appointments. I mean, we had timers on the table this year, just to let visual timers, so my people knew that, hey, you got 30 minutes and somebody else is going to be here for you. So that kind of helped move things along for us. I
Like
mean,
a chess timer.
yeah, it was just, it didn't ding or anything. It was just a little visual indicator. Because look, you get talking, you want to talk to people, right? But the thing is, you don't want to be rude to the person that has the 4:30 appointment. You don't want that person to be rude that has the 5 o'clock appointment. And I think that, so for us, we didn't really notice any drop off because of the appointment scheduling, I think.
Mhm. And then how about new retailers that you hadn't done business with? Did you see any kind of an uptick in that, or kind of your normal flow of how many you get coming by?
I don't know the actual answer to this, but I think Cindy gave me the indication that we probably opened about 30 odd accounts.
Okay.
So, and for us, because our buy-ins to open aren't super steep, but they aren't free either, right? So we tend to get pretty good opening orders from retailers at this point. They have to have made the decision that they we don't get a lot of looky-loos the way we used to.
Mhm.
People kind of come in with more intent and they're like, okay, I know I want to bring this in. I looked at the packet. This is the base minimum. Okay, here's what I need to do if I want to get to the next level. So I don't know. I found that, I mean, again, I'm taking it anecdotally from my team, but they said that the retailers were probably the most prepared they've ever been since we started doing the trade show. They were very prepared.
Well, Steve, you did a good job preparing people. I know for me, I had everything worked out on spreadsheets because there's no way to get it done in a half an hour, whether it's your booth or Pete or Perdomo or anybody like that. You have to, that's part of our job as retailers, to be professionals and not walk and be like, oh, I don't know what I need. And I think more people are prepared these days.
Well, I think anybody of any real level has to be that way. Yeah, I mean, I remember not going and doing any kind of work and just looking and just making an order up right there as I sat. And those days are gone. I mean, you can't do that anymore. So I think any serious retailer, any significant size, mid-size or bigger, you have to be that way. Otherwise, you never get nothing done. So, we know the deals pretty much well in advance outside of some surprise or last minute deals. Our team will look at whatever our last trending 4 to 6 months of history, and we go in there with estimated, this is what basically our order is going to be based on what you're offering and what our needs are. Then we'll make adjustments on the fly, and that's pretty much all that time that was used there. I mean, I think we placed one of the biggest show orders for Steve's company of his thing, and I think probably Cindy spent the less time talking to my operations guy than anybody. I barely saw him sitting there. They were sitting there for 2 minutes, had some conversation about a couple of things, and he was gone.
Right. Yeah, and I think most retailers that are prepared like you, like Jay said, he has his plan and then he has a slush fund. And if he sees something that he wasn't expecting to see that catches his eye, then he'll go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to dip into my slush fund. But I think that I just feel as though all the way around, the exhibitors were better and the retailers were better. Just everybody seemed better.
Yeah. Pete, what about you? New accounts?
No, yeah, obviously a few new accounts. We just work a little bit more streamlined than we used to. I mean, we have a printer in the booth. If someone needs a regular price sheet, we just print it out for them right there. We don't have to bring like stacks of paper with us like we used to. Now everything's electronic, so everything gets entered into an iPad or your telephone. And now if a retailer wants a copy, we used to come in with 3-part NCR back in the old days.
I remember that.
Oh, this is your copy, and then you're going to get a copy of that in the shipment, and we're going to keep a copy. Now it's just like, here's your order that you placed, and then the rep puts it in and it goes into their email. So now, and it goes directly into our QuickBooks. So we're just running more streamlined. So we have more time to meet with retailers. And yeah, I can't tell you the exact number of how many new retailers we picked up, but for sure it was a number because I know some of the reps were scrambling to get people in because of the way our system works. It has to go live in the system for them to see it in their iPad. And they're like, hey, you have a deadline and this is your deadline. They're like, hey, can you put that store into the system? Otherwise I won't be able to put the order in before the prices go back up. Because we had a small deal on certain things, and it was just easier to work this year. Everything was way easier to get done, and we were able to see more people, talk to more people, and ultimately, I think everybody walked out happy. Even my main guy, he left on Monday. He went back to the office in Los Angeles because we were shipping the whole weekend.
Mhm.
So everything's running much quicker. We ship Saturday and Sunday. We didn't ship obviously, but we packed Saturday and Sunday and had orders to pack on Monday and then this whole week because we didn't have everything weighing us down like it used to. Much easier.
Yeah, Pete, you're very organized. I had an email with my order before I left the booth, and you were one of maybe like 10 that were like that. It's just very quick.
And that's where we were talking about this before we went live. This is where we're a little weak. This is an area that I need to step up our technology game and get a little, but we've never had this many orders. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We were caught a little flat-footed on that. So, but that's a major thing that we need to improve. is we need to better leverage technology to make the experience. I mean, I think we did a good job, but we could definitely do a better job.
It's a question for Steve and certainly Pete. I know last year we saw a big uptick in, I don't know if you call it influencer, we call it new media. At the show, there was like a massive uptick last year, but the numbers on the floor anecdotally seem kind of low to us this year compared to last year. You're kind of both of you are kind of a hub for media to show up to. Did you observe any of that trend this year? Or what was your sort of take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot of new guys. I was fortunate that I knew a lot of these guys from Instagram and Facebook. So, a couple guys came in the booth. I mean, even Coop came in the booth 3 times, and I just wasn't ready for him. Thankfully, he came back on the 4th day. But I ended up hitting up a few guys after the show, and I apologized because I missed them. Like, I would turn around, they would be gone because I took 1 extra minute with someone else. That's why I wish I had Steve's timers in my booth.
I feel like there was less media at the show this year. I mean, the serious guys that are like really like, the everyday or the every other day kind of guys, they were all there for the most part. But the Johnny come lately kind of media guys, I saw far less of them this trade show. And part of that may be because I take media appointments the same way as we take sales appointments. And so for me, my media is very organized. So I tend to catch everybody, and I leave a few slots open for the people that I didn't know to reach out to. And they say, hey, can you give me hey, here's a link, go here, you can book a media appointment. I keep a few hours off the books that don't go out. So I always have a little bit of time, some flexibility. But overall, I felt there was less of that influencer, super ultra, and I don't even know if to call them media, because they're not really media. You know what I mean? They're more that Instagram, yeah, kind of more like personality kind of thing. And I felt that there were less of those this year than there was the previous year. That was my feeling.
I'll tell you, I saw a few people that came into the show that are really good at what they do with social media. And they were literally walking off the show floor, and it almost seemed like they were editing it as they were walking back to their room, because you would see that stuff up on YouTube really quick and really good. I mean, yeah, there's some guys that do live stuff, but the really polished social media that I saw was up within a few hours after they got off the show floor, which was impressive.
Yeah, I think part of that too is just how much improved all of these apps are. I mean, even look at how my photo game has improved just in the last year, because you now have all these great apps that make your life so much easier than before.
All right, let's talk a little about the retailer side, your booth visits, your purchasing plans, or what your plan was going into the show, what booths you were visiting. Jake, you talked about you had your targets and then your slush fund, how well were you able to stick to kind of that plan going in?
Very well. Well, last year I spent too much money. So this year I was within about 2%. I was very cognizant of the fact that I had to get what I needed to get for existing products. And I had my eye on certain other products. But also I was cognizant of the fact that there's a show in 8 months. And so I curtailed in a few areas. Part of my problem, and Abe probably, this is second nature for him, but our business has doubled in the last 3 years. It's quadrupled in the last 5 years. So it used to be, I did a big order with Fuente. Well, now it's a big order with 6 or 7 companies. And, you have to figure out how those dollars are going to go. And you don't know walking into the booth necessarily what's going to be available, what's going to be allocated. So there were a couple booths where I spent more than I wanted to. And then there were other booths with companies that I do a lot of business with. I'll give you an example. I put in a very small order of Padron because I got what I needed to get. And I just know Padron, I order from them every 10 days anyways. So Padron gave up some money at the show, but I know that every 10 days I'm going to be ordering what I order from Padron, because they didn't have a lot of new product, and the new product order is going to come in March, April, May next year. So we just did it like that. And so there were companies that we do a lot of business with that didn't have very many new things. And we're still going to order from them, of course, but I use some of that budget towards things that I had to get at the show. I mean, like I think Pete, you had 3 or 4 things that if I wanted them, I had to get them at the show. So that gets a priority because we do a lot of business with you and we know we can't order them in August. Same thing with you, Steve. There are things that we had to order at the show or we weren't going to get them.
Yeah, it's kind of, I'm not sold on the PCA exclusive program. I feel like it's not well curated and managed well. And so I kind of have PCA exclusives, but I don't call them PCA exclusives. There's definitely a benefit to our retailers that come to the trade show. The way that it's set up, it benefits the people that take the time to come and spend the money and see us in person. And I mean, we don't make a big deal out of it, but I think our purveyors, they've just seen the history of how we've done it the last 7-8 years. And they kind of know that's baked in the cake, that there's a benefit to writing your order at the trade show versus writing your order after the trade show. And we try to build that perk in because we want to encourage people to come. I think it's just good for the health of the industry. The more people that show up, the more conversations you have, the more you get energized, the more you learn from your peers. So, I mean, we kind of do it without like saying, oh, it's a PCA exclusive, right?
Yeah.
It's a PCA priority.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, you'll notice even in my like social media posts, I make a big deal out of the PCA for probably a good month before the trade show, maybe even 8 weeks before the trade show. I start tagging them in every single new product, what we're doing. You know what I mean? I go out of my way to emphasize the trade show. I don't know. Maybe it's the cigar geek in me. Maybe it's because I remember the experience I had when I started going to the show back in the early 90s. I just feel that it's good for the health of your business. And I think a lot of retailers, they're really, and the other thing that's really nice is I'm noticing a new crop of younger retailers that are really starting to grow. And they're very active in the PCA. And I can tell you, I don't have any retailers that are really growing crazy that aren't active PCA members. All the accounts that are like really doing the best, and I see the real good numbers out of, and I see the good growth out of, they're all active members of our industry. Maybe it's just because of the way our product is and how we promote it and the price point. I don't know. But I know that for me, those members are the most important. Those are the most important retailers to me, period. It's just the way it is. So I try to do something that makes it a little bit more worth their while.
And Abe, how did your strategy go for what you wanted to see at the trade show? And were you able to stick to that, or did some?
I've had the worst strategy for 30 years now, hands down. I've gone to the show. I bought what I wanted to buy without a budget, without a clue, ever freaking knowing what I was doing and worrying about the bill when the bill came in.
Right.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, that strategy seemed to have worked for me for 30 years. So, and now it's different because, to be honest with you, as someone who has grown from 900 square foot store, there's a psychology to buying. And sometimes your psychology doesn't equate to your bank account. And that's something when you grow, you have to, it's a curve, I think some of our orders at the trade show this year was more than my opening order to open my second location, which I would have had a heart attack at some point. But when you're growing, if you're stagnant and you're level in this industry, it's the same thing year after year. If you're the type of retailer that's growing your company dynamically, there's a psychology part of it that doesn't quite catch up to where you're at in business all the time. So that's something that we kind of have to work through sometimes. And
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, Abe, because I would say you go to the trade show with probably 90+% of your budget locked. You already know what you're buying before you get there. So it's just your slush isn't the same your slush used to be.
No, not now. Not now, but I'm telling you, I'm talking about psychology like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, even, Steve. I've never worried about what we ordered at the show, but like, the numbers of what we're ordering now, like I would have never even like envisioned or thought like we would ever do that like 4 years ago, 3 years ago. So that's always something when you're growing, and it's a thing if you're a growing company that you constantly battle, because sometimes your growth is growing more than your psychology of your business. I mean, you're more seasoned than me. You work with bigger companies than me. Maybe you don't have that issue, but I've had that issue throughout my career because we've kind of grown in a steady path. And a lot of times my psychology hasn't caught up to where I literally am as a company. I'm kind of still a little bit in my head living, where we were maybe 5, 8 years ago. And we're constantly trying to be more open-minded, to be more aggressive. So me, I never kind of went to a trade show with a budget or, God bless him, Jay, as efficient as Jay has been. I mean, now we're a little bit more efficient, but we still don't go with a budget. We're going to buy what we think is a good deal. We're going to buy enough that we think is going to be of value and help us bring better deals to our end consumer at the end of the day.
Yeah, but see, what I find that the better retailers, they don't get motivated by deals. Better retailers look at what the turn rate is on their product, and they won't over. I always find it's the younger, lesser experienced retailers that tend to really overextend themselves because they get kind of caught up in the moment. And I always tell new accounts, and this is probably counterintuitive to what the PCA wanted me to say for probably until maybe 3 years ago, but I always tell young accounts, don't take any deals. Don't buy deals on new product. It's gambling. You have no idea what it's going to do. Know what your turns are in your store and figure it out that way, and take advantage of where you're going to best put your cash. You're muted, Abe.
No, I know. I'm sorry. I was talking to my daughter. Yeah. The McAllen has set in. What were you just saying, Steve?
I was saying that I tell young accounts one of the worst mistakes.
No, you're absolutely right.
Too many deals.
No, you're absolutely right, Steve. But
deals are not your friend. When
no,
you know
they are your friend.
When you know that you sell 50 boxes of Cuba every month, then yeah, go deep on Cuba when the deal.
Right. They are your friend if you're smart enough to know your data and know what the curve is for that particular product, right? I mean, when we go into the trade show, we know somebody's got a good deal. We know what basically 3 months worth of sale is, 2 months worth of sales is, 4 months worth of sales is, and even 6 months worth of sales, and depending on how deep that.
And then you make it as a business decision. Do I allocate this amount of cash to put towards that product? I think.
Yeah, I mean, the better at selling product it is, the more behooves you because you're.
And this is one of the reasons why I think it's so important for retailers to come to the trade show. The better educated the retailers are, the better it is for us manufacturers. Period.
Well, I'm going to tell you another reason.
The better you are at your job, the better it makes my life. Period.
I'm going to tell you another reason why it's important to go to the trade show, right? A lot of my intelligence and education has come from going to the trade shows for the last 20 years and learning by those who were ahead of me and bigger than me, and taking the time to have the conversation with those retailers. And not just the good and the bad, because as I was growing from 1 to 3 to 5 locations plus, I literally, believe it or not, the most important people I wanted to talk to were the people who went from 5 and 6 locations down to 1. What happened? What was the cause of your demise, right? I mean, so honestly, for me, especially early on in my career, going to trade shows, that was the most beneficial thing for me, is to talk to retailers who I admired and were very successful and really wanted to learn from. Because look, knock on wood, I'm at the stage in the show where I will get asked by a lot of other retailers, and actually some manufacturers. And I never mind sharing the knowledge, because knowledge was shared a lot with me throughout my career by many great retailers. And I think that's part of the onus, if you've been privy to that, is be able to pass that kind of information on. But that happens at the trade show. That passing of information and data and knowledge and history and help comes when you go to the trade show, because you will find the guys who are doing it right, and you ask them questions. And for the most part, guys are pretty open about it. And you can find the guys who are on the downside.
It's on the same.
And they are so open.
I look at what Pete has done being a boutique small brand, and most small boutique brands crash and burn. And Pete has managed to take his business and get it to a point where it's sustainable, and he's managed to maintain his customer base and to grow it. So I look at the way Pete's done things over the last 2 decades, and there are things that I model after the way he's done what he has done. You know what I mean? So I mean,
I think we're pretty much cut from the same cloth, Steve, because I go into the trade show like you, overly cautious. Sometimes, just I don't go into the trade show giving deals on new product. The new product is if someone wants to take a chance on it, they take the chance on it. And you can see the ordering pattern. People don't go heavy on the new stuff that's coming out because they know they can get it all the time. But when I give them a deal, I go into the trade show loaded up with regular core product that I know moves. And that way it gives the retailers that know their inventory access to something they know that moves also. And I have it ready to ship for them. And they've gotten a deal on it. But I rarely go into the show heavy on a new product, worried about like, shit, are we going to sell this all? Because I want people to understand that we're going to have it. Buy it, test it, see if it works, and then hopefully you want to reorder real quick. So we always go into the show, with about the new stuff, we sell about 80% and leaves me inventory for the next few months.
Right.
And I have a backup order coming from the factory, but it's been a tough way to get there because in years past I would go into the show with nothing to sell. So I'm glad I've gotten to a point where I've actually managed my own inventory better. And I'm sure that you're the same way.
Try to be.
All right, Mike, how was your purchasing plan? Were you able to stick to that pretty well?
From a retailer standpoint, I mean, I'm kind of like a hybrid of the two. I know who I'm going to do business with, right? So, and I kind of have an idea as to where my numbers need to be and where I need to grow as well. So, you invest a little heavier with those guys. I'm not necessarily hell-bent on the discount, as far as volume is concerned, because I don't think that my volume equates to that number. But the guys, as a retailer, the guys that you want to support, right? Or the guys that you've kind of established with, and you continue to grow with those guys, right? So you see what they're doing at PCA. I mean, your Fuente order is going to be your Fuente order, right? Especially the way that they've been doing it with the Opus. And what they did was brilliant this time around. They hit you with everything. All the core stuff already arrived. They already hit the credit card. So they knew that that's going to go through for every other retailer. And then they're going to ship the Opus stuff later. So, that was a hell of a design. But, you look at, because a lot of retailers will overspend at the show and they'll go well past their cap. But if you have a game plan as to, what you're excited about, what you're looking to buy, who you're looking to take on, and what your regular, brand owners and manufacturers are that you carry, it's pretty easy. Every once in a while you catch yourself in a moment of weakness, where you believe in a guy or you have a conversation with an individual and you're like, all right, let's give it a try. Let's run it out. And that's definitely where you guys are calling it slush kind of comes into play. I didn't really see that much this year. I don't feel like there was a tremendous amount of new guys. There were some. None of them really caught my eye, unfortunately, so I kind of just stick with my primaries. And, that being said, too, it wasn't that easy for me to go around that much this year either, so I had a great show for me. I feel like I could definitely do better. But at the end of the day, there are new accounts and, you do try and retail and you do try and do media stuff. So I'm definitely not the strategic person of the business where I'm let's jump off the cliff and build a plane on the way down type of an approach. And that's really kind of served me very well. So, I don't think that we overspent. I think that we did dabble a little bit, but nothing crazy.
All right. That's good because it leads me to my next question for the retail side is, were there brands that you guys did business or that you engaged with this year that, you hadn't previously? And it doesn't have to be a new company. It could just be a company that has been around for a few years that you just hadn't really worked with before. And kind of Jay and Abe and Mike, if you guys want to jump in, if anybody that you guys engaged with this year.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I didn't really have anybody new that really stood out. I'm kind of more focused on some of these smaller dudes that I'm looking to see that are passionate about the industry. Black Star Line is definitely one of them. I like what he's doing. He's kind of branching out and he's doing some more production stuff. So, Eric's always got my support, right? And I want to see him succeed and do well. The Howard G guys, you know, I love those guys. Howie's awesome. He is a character in himself, and I want to see him succeed. So, you know, I went a little deeper on some of those guys because I want to personally promote them, you know. And I think that that's really what happens when it comes to being a retailer. You know, time and time again, you can just open the door and just let somebody in. But the reality is that you want to turn that 3-stick consumer into 5, that 5 into 10, that 10 into a box, right? And making sure that they're leaving with different things to try as well, so that they feel happy about the experience. So, you know, some of these smaller dudes that I already do business with, I want to build more for them. I want the consumer that comes to my store that will go to other stores, say, hey, I had this and this is fantastic, and then to continue to develop. So that's really kind of was what played out for me this year.
Abe?
You know, I go into every trade show with the intent to kind of maybe specifically look at somebody or find a company or two that we feel we could work together with. You know, like Mike said, the last thing I want to do, and unfortunately, the bigger your variety, the bigger your selection, what more you offer, it's very easy to bring in any new brand and they get lost completely in the shuffle. So, you know, my goal is always when bringing in a new brand is, are they willing to work within a formula and a system that we've seen be successful now for 30 years? You know, some are very open, some are very willing, some are very closed-minded. So for us, it's more of a process than just we met somebody. If you're a new company, the odds that we'll meet you at the trade show and place an opening order is about 0. It will be our point of an initial conversation to understand the psychology, the history of the company, to see if these are people we might be able to actually work with. And then we will probably have a post trade show follow-up. And there was one company who actually caught my eye this year. And, you know, I won't mention it because if we don't bring them in, it doesn't say anything good about it. But I was impressed. I was impressed with how young they were, how streamlined their product line looked. There were some issues in the model that we had as a company, and after having discussions with them, they were very open to listen. And I actually communicated with that company today, and I think we're gonna have a follow-up meeting next week. Because if I'm gonna bring in a new brand that you know, it was really funny because they had all the elements to be more successful than they are today. So I'm trying to figure out where are they going wrong, because it's not I actually smoked the cigars today. I thought it was actually the cigars, because everything else looks so good. I said, these cigars may be shit. Maybe that's the problem.
Right.
Cigars weren't shit. So there's something wrong somewhere else in the equation. And I don't mind finding companies like that and bringing them into the fold and working with them if they're willing to do it. And I think that's kind of what I like to do every year going into the show. And I'm going to kind of use this opportunity to talk to Jay, because I've kind of been talking about the PCA, but I've been talking out of my ass because I really don't know. And PCA may have been doing this. But one of the things I noticed this year, Jay, in visiting some of these newer companies, is how unprepared some of these first-time companies were. Like, had no clue. There was one booth I went to that had no order forms, didn't know, like, hey, maybe we're supposed to be here to take orders. You know, we're directing people to their website. People who didn't have packaging ready because obviously this was their first trade show and they didn't realize that no one's delivering your packaging on time. So have a plan B and C, you know? I don't know if the PCA provides a first time coming to the trade show checklist, how to be better prepared, what you need to know, what you don't need to know, what you should bring. If you do, then failure on their part. If you don't, I think it's something that would really behoove people, especially as a first time company coming in, not really knowing what they're in for, to have that kind of a checklist to say, yeah, this is really to help us get ready and maybe have an opportunity for a better successful show. I think would be very useful for them.
Yeah. How about you, Janie?
I'm not.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I've just responded to Abe. I'm not really sure because that's not something I'm involved with. I do know that there was a lot of work done this year with the BCA companies, and they seem to be very prepared and do well. So I just don't have the answer to that because that's something I deal with.
The Boutique Cigar Association?
Yeah, they seem
Yeah,
pretty
a lot of
prepared.
first time companies probably aren't going to be involved in that. So I'm just throwing it out there. If they, like I said, the PCA might be doing something, I'm unaware of it, and these people are just unprepared. But if they're not, I think it would help
Really, if you
them.
think about that, Abe, it would really be us that would have to teach them. And what's the incentive for us to help teach our competitors? I mean, we do,
No,
and I'll tell you what, there are people that you do. Like, for example, I have a soft spot for Henderson Ventura. I like that kid. I like the fact that he's really into tobacco. I like the fact that he actually makes cigars. I have a soft spot for him. So if Henderson Ventura ever wants to talk to me about anything, I'm always willing to just share whatever bullshit I have to share. But at the same time, it's tough because it's really a lot of people come to the trade show. Look, we all go to our first trade show very ill prepared. You really have no idea what to expect. And one of the things I always tell these new guys is if you rate 17 orders at your first trade show, you had a home run.
oh
Okay?
yeah,
You really do. Willie Herrera, his first year, he didn't write 17 orders. Okay. A lot of companies, they don't write barely any orders, and they have to understand that it's a really long grind. And that one of the things I think a lot of these small companies make a really big mistake on is they shouldn't be trying to go national out of the gate. It's just too expensive a game that they need to focus local, where you can drive to in your car, visiting shops, talking to consumers, talking to shop owners, get to know their local guys much more. Because if you're just going to go in a trade show, because even if you do the trade show small, it's still 30K plus. There's just no way to do it small.
Steve, I get it, but with all due respect, you're talking about two different things. You're talking about making a bad decision or a good decision, but I'm talking about the point after the decision is already made. You know what I'm saying? And it's not your job to educate another retailer or another manufacturer. I mean, if you like somebody, you want to give them pointers, that's fine. But the PCA is the trade organization. They're there to help and represent the trade. And if I'm coming in, look, I went and saw Kevin Hart, right? We had front row seats for Kevin Hart while I was in Vegas. He did an email with 32 points of how to get to this concert and be prepared and what you need to do and what you need to coach. And that was just a comedy show. So I think making if we're going to attract newer companies as an organization, not as you as a manufacturer, Steve, but we're going to attract newer companies and we want them to have a chance for success. I think making a simple, hey, here's a list of maybe how to be better prepared for your trade show is a very basic, simple thing. Even though I'm not a manufacturer, I'm pretty sure I could write up a 12-point thing of how to be better prepared to, for your first trade show. It's not, we're not telling them the formula to success. We're just saying, hey, look, be prepared to take an order. You might want to have, one company didn't even have sales sheets, man. They didn't even have sales sheets to show their products. I mean, it's.
Yeah, but you're basically talking about the stupid of the stupid here. What can you do with it?
I get it, man. But also, this is the trade organization. So I'm just saying, why would you not want to try to help
I've
them
had
be
it
better?
beat in my head for the last 30 years that the trade organization is for the retailer and not for the manufacturer. So I don't know why the PCA would take on that responsibility of teaching.
Because successful manufacturers
Yeah.
make for a better trade show, which is their number one source of revenue.
I understand, but I'm just happy that they're getting the experience better for the retailer. So for me, I'd rather their focus be there, but
It's not a major thing. It's
Yeah.
like a one document thing that could make the
Well,
experience better.
they do say they're a full service organization now. That was what when they rebranded, that was the whole thing.
Tell them, Coop.
And they don't have a problem going into the media space. So why not do this is what I'm saying. This is for the benefit. This is a big benefit of your show here.
Steve wants everybody to suffer the way he did.
What I would say to a new exhibitor is do it light, do it smart, do it inexpensively, have low expectations, and understand that you're going to go into this trade show and you're going to have a couple, 3 learning years to kind of figure it out a bit. You know what I mean? Not everybody, look, I think my father benefited from Pete's experience, right? There's no doubt about it. Pete did the hard work for them on that end of the business, and they actually took cues from him and the way it worked. I had the benefit of being on the buyer side at JR and then with massive crazy Drew Estate. But I'm still curious, Jay, what did you see that caught your eye that was new?
To quote Mike, I met Howard G last year and I decided to bring him in this year. And I feel like he's got some great creative juices. And that was one I wanted to bring in because I wanted to highlight him. One of the requests I get from a lot of my members is, we want more African-American cigar makers. That has been a request that I've heard dozens of times. So I've been looking at Starline and other ones out there. And I mean, obviously you want to bring in good cigars, but Howard, his personality is infectious. He makes fantastic cigars. And why not give him an opportunity? And like I said, I took a year to think about it. I also brought back in a brand that I haven't carried for several years. I had sort of an interesting relationship with Curivari because they sold, but they were difficult to get a hold of. And I felt like I'm concerned about the economy. And one thing that Curivari does very good is they have inexpensive cigars, but they're good cigars. So I brought them in. And one that I've been looking at for a couple of years, which I'm going to mispronounce, Viva La Vida. Those guys understand retail. It's funny, I walked into their booth to get their new cigar, the El Pupo. All right, hopefully I didn't mispronounce that. And I walked away with the Viva La Vida because they had thought of an ingenious way with a tray that's very well done to present their different blends. And then I heard more about their blends than I think I could possibly receive. And he was a little disappointed at first and said, "You've got this thing figured out with this tray." I said, "I think that's going to be a better introduction than the new brand that's got the great ratings that are in boxes that are not going to fit on my shelf very well, and I don't have space." And I'm excited about that brand because I think that once again they're making a good cigar that's not outrageously expensive. And then I one that just never, literally, I was coming back from the restroom. And I was familiar with the Martinez Cigar Factory. They've been doing some interesting projects, and I like to support El Tito de Bronze, and I wanted to support another American manufacturer. And then I saw the shoes of the guy at J. London. I'm like, okay, I got to talk to this guy. And I was blown away with how good his cigar was. And for a cigar that's made in the United States, it tastes great, and it's a pretty good price point. So I took a shot on him. And then there were a number of other companies, kind of like where Abe's at, where I went to their booths, I looked at them, and I'm thinking about them. And maybe next year I'll bring them in, or the year after. But I just didn't have a budget for a lot of new people. There was another company I brought in where I liked their cigars, but their packaging was horrible. And I tried to say in a very nice way that your packaging sucks. So I said, well, how about you send me these cigars, but send them naked, and I'll sell them as a house blend. And that turned out to be a good situation because no one was going to buy those cigars in the boxes and the bands they had. And I was very upfront with them about that. But I thought they had good cigars that, once again, were less than $8. So that's what I'm looking for. I said, yeah, I bought a couple of $100 cigars at the show, but I also wanted to had a conscious effort to bring in several lines of cigars that were under $9. Because one thing I hear from my customers is, maybe not the box guys, but the guys who come in 3 or 4 times a week and buy 2 or 3 cigars. Hey, I don't want to buy a $12 cigar. What do you have that's $8, $9 that's good? That's a very small universe. So I focused on that, and that helped drive my decisions. I mean, Howard cigars are a little bit more expensive, but I think they're really good. And like I said, I've been looking at him for 2 years, and he and I have talked extensively. So to me, that was just a layup to bring him in. And my good friend Bear is the one that introduced me to him, and I'm just looking forward to him doing well. So I was glad that Mike mentioned him as well.
It's kind of segueing there, talking about higher price cigars, especially the retailers, seeing these brands come out with some higher priced as new releases. How do you kind of deal with that? Is that something that you kind of stick with the brands that you've done with, and you think you'll do well with those, or do you kind of shy away from some of these higher priced offerings that is kind of the new trend?
I got kind of burned last year with a couple of companies. I can sell a $100 unicorn. I don't know how, but I do. And I can sell a $30 Rocky Patel. I could probably sell a $100 Rocky Patel. I had no trouble selling $70 Plasencia cigars. So a $100 Plasencia cigar with a big old volcanic rock, that's easy. But a company that's not normally in that range, I'm very skittish, particularly if it's a new company and the only cigar they have is over $20. That's a tough ask. You know, Steve Saka said this over and over again. You know, Padron just didn't come out with the 1926, you know, in 1964. It took years to build to that. So I'm more focused upon brands that have established core lines. You know, it's real easy to sell an Escasso for Pete, even the grand luxury Escassos, because you have Havana 6, you have other cigars that are more affordable. But just for a new brand and all they have is $20, $30, and $40, I stay away from that because I've been burned too many times in the past.
How about you, Abe or Mike?
Go ahead, Abe.
I mean, look, it was the year of the high-end cigar, but at the end of the day, no one's going to make these cigars if consumers aren't buying them. And consumers are just buying them. And look, as a retailer, sometimes, I mean, Steve will tell you now, we're running a 12-week-long Summer of Saka promotion. And I've just been flabbergasted at what consumers are spending, how much they're buying. And I just think as a retailer, look, I've always said it many, many times because I do get a lot of people, especially who want to get in this business, asking for advice. If you're scared of inventory, don't get in this business. Don't get in any retail business if inventory scares you. Money in the bank is, well, I can't say it's worthless because it's actually nowadays it's actually pretty good. Yeah, CDs are paying like 5% plus. But I mean, money in the bank's not that great. Inventory's king if you know how to move it. And if you're scared of inventory, retail sales is not your thing. So I've always, at any point in my career, if you walk into any one of my retail stores, the first thing you'd say when you walk in the door is, holy cow, right? I mean, we've always had things stocked to the hilt because I love inventory. Inventory is your ability to sell. So, you know, we will try these types of cigars. I think Rocky had other cigars. It doesn't kill you to bring 1 or 2 boxes in, see how the market goes. And if you have a better feeling, you can go a little bit deeper. I think we might have gotten some of those Oliva ones. I think I have a standing back order with Steve for his unicorns, waiting for it to eventually come and drop. So, I mean, if you're going to do look, if you're afraid of inventory and you're afraid to try stuff like this, you really never know the limitations of what your retail store
Can I
can
ask
do.
the question differently though, Abe? It's not a question of like, look, when you're betting on a Plasencia or a My Father anniversary or a Padron or a God of Fire or something where there's like a huge history for those products, it's different than the brand new fresh company that's got no track record. The first product out of the gates, $20 and up.
I know, but we don't carry those brands. But you know as well as I do, is there are retailers who buy from you, buy from Rocky, and buy from Oliva, but won't make that leap because they just don't feel their consumer base is there. You know, or they don't.
I tell you by my own numbers, I sell way more Ombagogs and Mi Queridas and regular old Sober Mesa Brulees than I sell Paladin de Sakas and unicorns and all that
Okay,
stuff.
great. Once again, I don't know what that has to do with what I'm saying. I'm saying as a retailer providing service to the consumer, there is that market there. And as a retailer, it's my job to provide people what they want. And I'm telling you, what I'm seeing is people want this product. Otherwise, I wouldn't be buying it and you wouldn't be making it. I mean, you've been out of your unicorns now for what, 2 months or a month?
Yeah,
and when's your next shipment coming in?
Yeah,
So
we sold out in February. So yeah.
Okay, so yeah, keep telling me about. I mean, that's my point. As a retailer, my job is to provide consumers their needs. It's not about what I like. I sell half of what I don't like. I mean, that's not my job. I don't make a living on what I like as a brand or what I like as a cigar. My personal taste profiles. My job to be a good retailer is to listen to my base, listen to people who are paying the rent and paying my employees, and provide them what they want. And there is that market. And I think there are people, because probably 5-6 years ago, I was that guy. I'm not going to bring up $100 nobody's buying it. There are people that are buying it. And I think as a retailer, you shouldn't be afraid to take that leap, especially if you want to try something once. You might be surprised as to what your base might be capable of, because sometimes I'm underestimating what our consumer base is capable of and what they want. So I'm just giving advice out there to other retailers who may not, because look, everybody's making it. They're not making it because it's not selling, Steve. There are people out there who want a special occasion cigar, want to buy $100 cigars, say, hey, I've smoked $100 cigar. Now, I'm not buying Joe Blow's company, who just came out yesterday, is making 100 cigar, because this guy's got no track record. But we're talking about legitimate companies that have been around for a while now, who are making high-end cigars and making cigars in that $100
You and I
price
are
range.
agreeing 100%, Abe. I'm on the same page with you. There are people that smoke Almas and they want a special Alma. There's people that smoke
do.
Padron and
They
want a
do.
special Padron. There's people that smoke for one. They want that cherry.
Or you shouldn't be afraid to try to cater those, because I think more retailers will be so shocked at how many of their consumers might have bought something like that had they had it than they would typically think.
All right, before the West Side Story and knife fight breaks out between Saka and Abe, I do want to add one quick thing real fast. You know, here's the one thing that I like in particular when it comes, I will invest with some of those guys and take a shot with some of those smaller dudes that are making bigger cigars, more expensive cigars. And I have to meet with them first, right? Because I believe that we got to pull together, right? As a manufacturer, brand owner, and a retailer, everybody has to work in unison to some level. There's definitely different degrees of that level. I mean, you know, case in point, Unlucky 13 and then like Frog Juice and all of those things, you explode a retailer because you say, hey, I believe in you. You know, yes, this isn't a huge, I'm not going to make a ton of money on this transaction, but hey, it'll help give me a footprint and establish more with that shop. Now, maybe those other brand owners aren't capable of doing something like that to that magnitude, but if they're building and promoting and say, hey, you know, my stuff is accessible here. You can't find it, go check this out. You know, that's a draw to my store or my online presence because I'm working with somebody that isn't aligned in that, you know, hey, I'm good at what I do. And hey, I believe that you're good at what you do. So, you know, I don't mind taking that shot. I don't mind spending $2-3 grand with that company, giving them their facings and seeing how that opportunity goes. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't go, there's always a way to move that product. Right. So, you know, I think that that's honestly the biggest thing of this industry. I mean, how many people have, both of you guys have been hit up and say, hey, I want you to make a cigar for me, right? Because, you know, they want you to be in line with them. They want to build more business with you guys. So, you know, again, maybe those guys can't do that, but they have other ways of help promoting your store and promoting sales for your store. So I'll take that investment. I'll take that shot.
All right, we kind of missed. I wanted to chat with Coop about any brands or booths that he hit, like for the first time, that kind of caught his eye.
Yeah, I mean, there were a few first time booths. I think a couple of small ones that really caught our eye was the Arnold Seraphin's booth. He was pretty impressive. Just you know, he's a guy who's making cigars out of Tampa. He seems to have a good handle of the industry. He seems to have you know, just a nice brand. His brand Seraphin de Cuba, actually. And the cigars were good. I mean, the cigars were really good as well. So that was one that definitely, not only the cigars caught my attention, but him as a person caught my attention. The other one was the Hooten Young guys that we had never met them before. So we met the two principals involved with that. And what was interesting about that booth is they were actually kind of trying to learn about us. Like what we, you know, they weren't really familiar with Cigar-Coop or a lot of cigar media, but they were taking a lot of time to try to understand what we do and what we were about as well. And again, I thought they had some pretty good cigars. They have one cigar that's coming from Eladio Diaz. It's a $15 price point, which, you know, these days you may say that's not super expensive for a small company, but you know, again, who's making the cigar, there's some pedigree behind it. So it was something that caught my attention there. So I would say those are the two companies that stood out to me this year at the trade show.
Okay. Next topic I have is what I listed as spectacles, and kind of made me around celebrities and things like that. With, you know, Guy Fieri, Chaz Palminteri, Chad Johnson. I know there was some other celebrities that weren't necessarily presenting a brand or anything like that, but they were around the show floor. I know Carl Malone was actually there in the La Aurora booth. Alonzo Mourning was being hounded by Mike the entire time. But yeah, do you guys feel that that the celebrities there is a good thing, a bad thing, or you're indifferent to it altogether?
I think it's a great thing for the industry.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe that the more people that are talking about this industry, the better. And to have guys like that on the trade show floor just creates buzz around what we do.
Mhm.
And I think, obviously Eric's doing really well with what he does with Guy, but ultimately I think it promotes the whole industry. So
Yeah.
it benefits all of us.
I agree 100%. The more, the better. I mean,
Well said.
We interviewed Chaz Palminteri, and what was interesting about him is he's not a big smoker, a cigar smoker, but he does love the industry. He does love what it represents, and that's why he got involved with it. It was not so much he had someone blend a cigar because he wanted a cigar to have his own cigar. This was something he wanted to do more as a tribute to his family. And like I said, he was genuinely enthusiastic about the industry, even though he was very honest and said, I'm not a big cigar smoker. And I think when you have something like that, that's a good testament for the industry when someone comes into the industry like that from the outside.
I agree with Steve and Pete. The better, more exposure of stuff like this that broadens the voice of our culture is ultimately a positive thing for everybody.
Yeah. I thought it was, I think it's, there's nothing but a positive with that. Especially like I said, we've talked a lot about what Guy's done over the last 12 months, or even maybe the last 18 months since getting into the industry. I mean, he's been an integral part of it. So that's a great testament. And he set the bar for everybody else.
And then we also had the El Septimo ashtrays, the super expensive ashtrays. I felt like there was a bit of a not as big of a buzz around that as there was the lighters last year, but I don't know if that, I'm sure there was a draw to their booth in regards to that, but I'm not sure if it was as big as last year was.
Was it? I don't know. I didn't go see it.
How many did you get, Abe? How many did you get?
I didn't even see it. I would have stole it before I went to go look at it.
Just work out a deal with the security guard, man.
Yeah.
but I feel the same way about that kind of stuff. I mean, look, we can all have a conversation. Does this make any sense? But anything that causes discussion, interest, debate, whatever it may be, I think ultimately is a good thing. So I think as an industry as a whole, I like seeing crazy stuff like that. Now, would it be my business model? No, but that's every company is a little different, right? We all have our lanes that we tend to stay in. I couldn't drive in that lane. I'm not part of that lane. I understand that. But the fact that that lane is there, yeah, what the hell? It's no skin off my balls for them to have a whatever $1 million ashtray. I don't even know how much it was. How much were the ashtrays?
I think it was 10 or 11 million. Yeah. Something like
$10
that.
million.
Yeah, that's folding money, right? Come on.
All right. So just taking kind of a poll of the room, what do you think was well done at the trade show this year? And it could be at any level. It could be something super small detail that you thought just kind of, move things along that people may not have noticed, or it could be something big. But what do you think was well done at this trade show? Anybody can hop in.
I got a small one.
Go for it.
Fucking badges. They didn't rip off and become decrepit on day 2. As
Thank you,
stupid
Pete.
as that sounds.
Thank you,
But
Pete.
Wasn't that last year? Wasn't the badges nice last year? I remember talking
they
about
were.
last year.
They were.
They were nice last year.
This wasn't the first year of nice badges.
I didn't notice last year, I guess. But
No. I literally bought that up.
You know what else I liked? But there was a big improvement on the badges. Got to give the tap people credit, right? That was your lanyard, right, Pete?
Yeah.
The lanyard
Tap
was
my
long
phone.
enough for a fat man. I was like, really, they always make those lanyards, and I feel like I'm wearing a dog collar. The lanyard, had good drip on the lanyard. So it was definitely nice. Yeah, those little.
I had nothing to do with the length of the lanyard.
Well, God bless whoever
we just
did.
supplied
'cause,
the artwork.
that's-
I'll give the PCA staff all the credit on that.
They did a good job on that one. Yeah, I felt like everything was a little smoother. The badge check-in was smoother. I felt like the security staff was much more level-headed.
Yeah.
Everything just felt much easier all the way around. I mean, it just everything seemed a little smoother, a little more organized. And you can see that, look, there was a transition from when Dawn was so actively involved with the PCA, and then she transitioned to a new job. And you see the improvements with Scott and with Lisa and that whole PCA staff. They're just better organized and they're better at their jobs, which just makes it easier for everybody around.
I agree with that. I'll tell you what, the one thing that really made me happy, I got into the Jason Newman episode of Hand Rolled, probably about 10 minutes left in it. And it was nice to see that they had a bigger stage, 2 screens, better sound. I think the seminars actually benefited from that. What was really nice, all the way from where we were sitting in our booth, when they were having their general meeting for the PCA, I actually heard applause coming from that other hall, which is the first time I've heard that in years. So obviously the people that were, the retail members that were participating in those things, they actually appreciated those things. And it was nice to hear like a little bit of enthusiasm from those people. In the years past, we didn't get that, which is nice to see it change.
I'll tell you something that's just totally just, you guys don't get it all because you just don't see it. I'm so thankful that the PCA finally switched to the tuxedo black gray carpet instead of the red show carpet being the built-in carpet, because nobody wants an ugly red carpet in their booth. So then you get having to pay for extra carpeting because they choose such an ugly color. So the fact that they choose a nice neutral color that we as exhibitors don't have to spring for an extra $8,000 to $12,000, so we don't have this garish red carpet. I know that sounds petty, but that's $8,000 to $10,000 that you can put into contributing to the opening gala, or that you can put into maybe giving away an extra promo at your booth or doing something else. It's those small little decisions that seem so inconsequential that really make a difference in a lot of ways.
You taking
Yeah,
notes, Jay?
I just think that they're listening better. I think they're actually taking notes better, and they're actually implementing better things for the show as a whole, which is great. And I think they're taking a lot of input from the media. I mean, I know that you guys have a media day where you actually sit down and get to, do a Q&A with the staff.
Yeah.
So it's nice they're listening and moving forward with positive things.
I think, Pete, I agree. And I think the whole first day, people call it day 0, but that first day, I think moving the opening meeting from the breakfast to the afternoon, I think was much better. I think they did better content this year. I think they have some more work to do with it, but I think it's in the right direction. I think this is the direction they should be going in for that day 0 flow. I thought it was, I mean, we could say, the lines were bad at the opening party, but those things I think are fixable. There's things that are fixable with that, and I think I have confidence because they, like Pete said, they listen, they implement, they look and see where things were wrong, and they've tried to fix it. So I got to give them credit on that.
I tell you where I've been a big fan of, although Coop may not agree with it. I love the later start and the opening of the show on the later floor, man. No one wants to get up at 8 in the morning to be on the floor at 9 in the morning when you're in Vegas. I think it's been insane for many, many years. I know it doesn't work in your schedule, Coop, but it works out for the rest of us.
Well,
it works out for the rest of us, Coop.
No, but if they can fix some things, like we said before with the media, because we're going to lose that day 4. If we could get some, if the media can kind of work the floor those couple hours before the 11 o'clock start, I understand that. I understand that retailers don't want to put orders. I understand people don't want to give up their Bar Luca time. So, I mean, that's what this is all about. So, I mean,
listen to me, whether it's Bar Luca or not, I didn't hit Bar Luca one time that night. I wasn't in bed before 2 in the morning. You're in Vegas. Unless my name is William Cooper, I'm not going to bed before 2 a.m.
Oh, I wasn't going to bed at 2. Ask the
Well,
guy.
then
Well, I went
there
to
you
bed
have
and
it.
I was getting up. Ask these
Then
guys.
there you have it. So, I mean, not starting a show at 9 o'clock at night in the morning, I think is in the best interest of everybody there.
Yeah, I like the 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. schedule. It's much more work.
It's really an 11 o'clock to 6 p.m. And that's where I had the
No,
issue is
'cause
more
the
just
VIPs are coming in at 10.
Yeah.
The media was coming.
We had this conversation. The majority of the people are staying in the guest hotel. So the majority of the people are coming on the floor at 10.
I like the shift an hour later. I like that a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Yep.
I think
Everybody-
I think a lot of
Everybody, sorry, Pete,
No,
everybody likes
no.
a Bacoup.
No, there's a couple people
We
haven't
had this
spoke up.
conversation on KMA.
There's
Everybody
other
likes a
people who haven't
Bacoup.
spoken up on the panel that may agree with me on this.
Well, Coop,
The
I actually,
Canadian,
as not
John?
a board member of the PCA, I'm not, even though they've tried to get me back on. I don't see why you're not allowed in with the VIPs.
We
We
said
are
that.
allowed to do
Oh, we are.
VIP.
Yeah, we are.
I'm
We
curious
are.
why.
Yeah,
We
we
are.
Yeah.
They are, Pete.
Okay, so it didn't hinder what you
No,
were doing
it's just
because you
Coop
did
wants
get in
he
earlier.
wants us all to be cracking the whip at 6
No,
in the morning.
Well, no, the problem is we've actually it's the 6 o'clock end time that really is the problem for us.
Yeah.
It's not the start. That's really where it's at 6 o'clock, which is just it compresses a lot of time in the evening. Where we used to have a little more time in the evening before the activities, now it compresses it. And it was time that was critical for us that now we have to do much later at night.
Yeah, but
No, I
it's-
mean,
but
listen,
also
man,
part of your
I don't
job
see
as
why
the
that's a
media,
problem.
you're gonna crunch really hard for 3 days. We have to crunch as manufacturers. That whole week before the trade show is sheer misery.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Coop, I was in a meeting with the CRA up until 7 o'clock. And I had to get back to my room, which was 6 miles away, get changed and be at my dinner at 7:30. And I still managed to beat my wife getting ready, amazingly enough, but I still got there on time. And it's a crunch, but ultimately it's something we all have to do. But to get up the next morning when we're all hanging out at Bar Luca until the wee hours of the morning, we want that extra 1 hour of sleep.
No,
And
I think.
Plus, I
think
wanted
Jay
that
Dave-
1 extra hour of the F1 race,
Yeah, there you go.
No, I think Jay Davis should
Priorities.
petition the board, to accommodate William.
Well, no, I really think a lot of credit should go to John Anderson and Greg Zimmerman, because they've done 2 things. They have opened up elections, and they have put a lot of people with big voices on the board, and more importantly, they've listened to them. And then also the other thing they've done is they took the handcuffs off Scott Pierce. So there's been an effort to not have the PCA board be a bunch of white dudes from New England and Virginia. They've been trying to get members who are west of the Mississippi, members who have experience with advocacy, members who are not afraid to speak up, both manufacturers and retailers. So I think a lot of credit should go to John Anderson and Greg Zimmerman by making these changes and being to listen, because I know that it's got to be challenging for some of these people that have been on the board for a long time to listen to people like me or Michael Herklotz or Josh Everetts bringing up things that maybe make them a little uncomfortable. That shows a lot of humility. And like I said, I think it's been the best show we've had in a long time. I know that 2022 was the most profitable show in the show's history for the PCA as far as money for advocacy. And this year wouldn't surprise me if it's greater. So it's good to hear the positive comments. Obviously, there are some things that we still need to upgrade. I would like to see the row numbers up in the ceilings, and that's expensive, but that's an area. And then I'd like to see the app come back. And the great thing is that the board and Scott, they're hearing that and they're willing to listen.
So talking about that, I agree. Hanging stuff is really expensive, but putting the numbers on the floor isn't as expensive. So
Yeah.
maybe it's a question of getting a manufacturer to donate floor mats with just the aisle numbers and their brand on it. You know what I mean? And you could put those on the ends of the aisles on both ends, and that would serve the same purpose. If we all knew that at the beginning of the aisle and the end of the aisle is going to have the aisle number, you just know to look down. You'd learn that in 2 seconds, and that doesn't cost the hanging cost.
I feel like
Yeah,
we had that at one point before.
We did.
We did
Okay.
actually. I think Drew actually was.
I think Drew did
the
it one
floor
year.
mat people one year.
I think that's a bright idea to just put, big, because you can get those floor mats now made custom printed for really inexpensive. You could do PCA branded ones if you wanted. Who cares? It's another sponsorship thing you could probably get.
Yeah.
Because
I actually thought they had them though. For some reason, I thought they were offering that as a sponsorship this year.
We do have the floor mats, but we don't have
You
the
do.
ones up in the ceiling.
Yeah, I don't think you need the ones up on the ceiling. It's
I
a
don't
waste
think
of
you need
money.
the ones over the ceiling either.
And the rigging cost is just too absurd. Anything you do above, when you get a cherry picker in there, you're already spending $5,000 to $12,000. It's crazy how much it costs to hang something from the ceiling.
All right, since Jay kicked it off, let's start the complaints about what didn't go well or what could have been better.
I'll
You
start
made
it.
me fired.
I'll start it. The
You
CRA
were nice to
meeting.
me.
Yeah, the CRA
Wait,
meeting,
wait.
right?
By the way, Coop is starting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm starting because I have it fresh on my mind and we just talked about it. So the CRA meeting, right? My question is, why isn't this just on the schedule? Hey, at this time, they're all gathered. This is like the third year on the agenda.
It was horrible. That whole thing was a complete disaster, in my opinion.
But it's been like that 3 years in a row where like because we've gotten. Here's the thing, like I had 2 big appointments. You were one of them, and Nick Malone was the other one. That kind of blew our whole schedule out. But if I known that this was on the schedule, and retailers at the same time, they could plan accordingly. Plus, people will show up there, and the more people you have there, I think the better. I mean, why wouldn't that just be put on the schedule?
I missed
No,
it
Coop,
all. I missed it all.
unfortunately, the organizations should have been working together a long time ago, and they're not.
Right.
And that's the biggest fault that we have in our industry is that these 2 organizations, one is primarily a manufacturer group, and the other one is supposed to be more of a retail group. And somehow they don't want to communicate the way they should.
Right.
I have a huge problem with them on the board of the CRA, and I hated our general meeting. I thought it was poorly executed. There wasn't enough people there. A lot of people are doing business. They don't want to leave their booth. I would rather hold another party somewhere to get everybody in the room so we can actually talk about things.
Yeah.
Because during the trade show, it's tough, man. It's tough. I mean,
Right.
Steve's in his booth working all day.
Yeah, well,
I almost missed a couple meetings.
My
because
problem, Pete,
of
was they
that.
told us the location and the time of the CRA meeting. I got notified of it Friday
10
morning,
minutes.
and I'm like, wait a minute, I already have people booked for this time. I couldn't leave them stranded.
Yeah,
So
no, absolutely.
we need to know the time and the location.
Right. I
Month
think it's a
ahead of
good thing.
time,
I think it's a
So
good
I
thing
can
that they have a
block it
CRA.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah, if again, both organizations actually communicated better with each other, we could actually have it as part of the general meeting, maybe.
I
But
agree, Pete.
we just don't, unfortunately.
I've wanted to go the last 3 years, and I always find out about it afterwards. I'll bring that up at the next board meeting. I agree. We're doing some things well with coordinating with CRA and CAA on legislative issues, but I think we need to do a better job of making sure that we're communicating ahead of the trade show, and I'll bring that to the board. I think that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, I think the theme of this trade show, and I think both Steve and Abe have said it, there's been a lot of really good incremental improvements, and I think possibly the most incremental improvement we've seen in a single trade show, and I've been attending now for 11 years. And so I think, just keeping that trend going forward. So, is there complaints? Yeah, but I don't see it as a complaint. I see it as this worked well. It can work better. Here's a way to, nudge that dial a little bit. Like, we talked about media access, maybe pushing it up a little bit more, because I will be there on the floor at 9 a.m. If that's an option. The Canadian will be ready to go at 9 a.m. despite how bleary-eyed I am. But it's just a matter of continuing that flow of incremental improvement through to March, through to the New Orleans show. And I think those moving that dial in little measurable ways does have a substantial impact overall in the flow of the trade show, because, we've talked about the lineups at the gala, but honestly, polling the people in the line, I don't think there was a single person who stood in that line for that entire time who had a dour face, who were unhappy. They were still happy to stand in line. They were still happy to be there. And I don't know that there's a lot of lines that you can have this group of people stand in for that length of time, and they're still come out of that happy at the end of it. So, can the line improve? Yes. But people didn't come out of that, with a negative experience. No one came out of it saying, oh man, the gala was good, but the line was terrible. Everyone came out of it going, it was a great experience, and here's how we can do it better for next time.
But just look at the tone and tenor of this conversation compared to the one we were having in 2019.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
You can all tell that there's been a vast, when we talk about the incremental changes, but they are stacking up, because this is a much different conversation than we were having 4 or 5 years ago.
For sure.
Well, even 2 years ago on the show.
Yeah.
My suggestion would be for water stations throughout the show floor. there were times where I was like, hawking booths to say, do you have any bottled water? Do you have any bottled water? It was just, it's so dry there.
That's another thing that they talked about. I think that was a sponsorship thing also.
Oh, okay. Yeah, somebody needs to pick that up.
Ultimately, Aaron, there's a lot of things that the PCA offers for sponsorships, but there's just not a lot of people stepping up to take those sponsorships.
And here's the problem with the sponsorship. It's the convention services that make it so hard. They charge you such an absurd amount of money of what they want to give you a bottle of water. I mean, the bottle of water is like what, $4.75 or $5.25 a bottle. So when you start talking about sponsoring a water station, you're talking about literally they want like $28,000.
Oh wow.
Cooler. I mean, so some of the asks. This is something the PCA can't control. You know what I mean? Because the convention services people themselves have such absurd prices on some of these things.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought
and the water fountains are gross.
And they are gross.
I thought the PCA meeting area was well utilized. There was, I think it was on day 4, there was a sort of, I think it was kind of impromptu because I didn't get an advance notification, but there was sort of a breakfast coffee station there on the last day. It's either the day 3 or day 4.
Day 4.
That went off really well. I think it had people known about that in advance. That would have been a lot busier early on because we kind of just happened across it and obviously descended like locusts. But I think that was very positive. Obviously,
I'll tell you, every morning when I would wake up, I would get the email from the PCA.
Yes,
actually, a couple of them because I have a few different emails registered. But I needed that because I needed that schedule. Like, what time am I supposed to be there? What's happening today? And honestly, that helped a lot. So it's nice to see them using that communication better.
I'm going to tell you what. One thing I learned from this show is how much shit I didn't actually know about the show this year.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was storytelling mode. I didn't know it was breakfast stuff. In fact, I was reading one of the comments. I guess you guys had some kind of text alerts, reminders. Jay?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
See, I got to sign up for that shit. I didn't even know about that either.
Oh, by the way, Saka, great job. I got an email and a text update as to don't forget your appointment. I don't think any other manufacturer did that.
Oh, that was great. That was great too.
Yeah, but that's just me using Calendly as software. So that's just a question. Any manufacturer can do that. I highly recommend it. $15.
But they don't.
But they don't.
I just think they don't know about it.
A little thing that they did for the media, I don't know if it was utilized enough, but and we have to figure out how to utilize it maybe better with the media pods that was set up this year, where there are meeting areas, their internet access, download capabilities, and there were these little mobile offices that they had set up towards the back. We have to figure a way that we would utilize them better. Maybe they had, I think, more than they needed this year. But again, I got to give the PCA credit because we've been asking for media space for a while. A lot of people have been asking for media space for a while, and they delivered on that this year. So if anything, we have to figure a better way that we can leverage that to keep it going.
Didn't even know about that.
And the couches back there were comfy.
Did you know about the golf simulator?
Yes.
It was right next to your booth. It was right, Aaron Nielsen found
did you
that
see the
like
whole
day
aisle
1.
of stripper poles? You missed that too, Abe?
Aaron Nielsen found the golf simulator on day 1.
What trade show were you guys at?
I was going to say, I'm starting to question if I was really there. It might have been all in a dream. Jesus.
So this isn't a complaint, but one thing I'd really love for the PCA to do is I'd love for them to rent space and put a cash bar and tables. So there's a place every night that's open from 7 to midnight where everybody can go. So you don't have to do the Bar Luca thing. You don't have to figure out where to meet people, particularly in a place like New Orleans, where we are going to have a hard time smoking. That would be something that I would be willing to sponsor. It doesn't have to be paid for. There doesn't have to be hors d'oeuvres. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. But if there's just extra convention floor space where they just set up cash bars every night, and there's a place where there's tables and chairs where people can go and hang out and congregate, because that's the reason why we all stand at that crazy bar in Vegas. I don't do it anymore. I don't think Abe does it anymore. It's just too hard. But if there was a place, the opening gala without all the frills, cash bar.
Well, we did that. We
chairs.
did that 2 years ago.
Yeah, but you did it like right after the show closed, right? And everybody's going to dinner. What we need a place that opens like from 8 to midnight. Okay, that everybody knows that, hey, if I go here, there's going to be a place I can smoke a cigar, sit down, talk with my friends, buy some drinks, all of
Well,
that.
that's what the after dark stuff that they did. But the problem was that a lot of the after dark stuff they did was off property.
Yeah.
You know, the one I did was actually on the property. You had to walk through a maze to get to it, but at least it was in the Venetian canal shops. So, and I was actually surprised they allowed smoking in there, which was really cool.
I think you'd be surprised at the attendance for something like that. And I think the convention people would be happy because they're getting to rent you more space, they're getting to rent you more tables, and they're going to get the cash bar take, and they would do well.
If they,
I agree.
I think what they need is like a host lounge, like to make, something like the Bar Luca experience, but it's dedicated for PCA. And I realize the Venetian probably wasn't willing to work with the PCA on this, but maybe that's something that the convention center in New Orleans, they could do next, the next few shows. But I think that's what Steve is kind of looking at here.
No, the Venetian was terrible. They had that Electra bar that used to be the champagne bar where you could smoke a cigarette or vape. And then they had the high-end bar. They could have dedicated those 3 bars for us. And the Venetian, they were not happy that we were not renewing, and they did nothing to help us.
I can understand that. And I totally see that it was definitely a Venetian problem. I mean, they made it difficult, obviously, with the table minimums at Bar Luca, from what I heard about.
But
Yeah,
here's
that definitely.
the
Go ahead.
table minimums really aren't a problem because the prices are like $25 a cocktail. Problem is you couldn't get drinks.
Yeah.
So it was hard to even spend the money if you wanted because they didn't have enough weights to handle the overload. That's why 4 cash bars set up in a convention space, tables, chairs, ashtrays. I think you'd be surprised how many people would go there after dark to just hang out and talk, because that's what we really want to do. We want to talk to our friends, we want to talk to retailers, we want to talk to our fellow manufacturers. I think you get a lot of people that would go to something like that.
We
right.
had that.
Okay.
We had that a few years ago. It was just, I think a lot of people didn't want to make the trek back to the show floor, but they were on the show floor, or not.
But they want to be
on the show floor.
The
But it was
problem
set
is
up poorly.
Yeah, they don't want to be like in this industrial area. They kind of want to be in they kind of want to have the Vegas feel. That's what I heard from a lot of people who didn't utilize that. Is that they wanted to go to Bar Luca because they felt like they were part of Vegas, with that. And well, I think it was a good idea. I just think people just didn't want to be in an industrial area smoking at that point.
You want some good news? Next year at the show, Resorts World is much more willing to work with us. There's a bar that can take 1,500 people where they're going to let us smoke after hours.
That's
And
what
there's
that's
a few
that's a
other
good,
places.
yeah, it's a good,
8.
Yeah. So Resorts
can 8
World is
fit that many people?
Oh, it's not 8. I don't remember what Scott told me it was called, but there's going to be that property is much more willing to work with us. And I think that next year, I'm excited about it. I think there's going to be a lot more places to smoke after show hours. And then also having a couple of host hotels will help. So I think that will be really positive.
Yeah, 8 is like one of a series of lounges that are next to each other, and then there's like a veranda for each of these that's outside as well. So, and that would probably be better to smoke outside that time of the year, I should say. So
yeah, we went to the veranda the day before the show opened, after we had 14 hours of meetings. There was a veranda and they had air conditioning and they had these moisture machines, and we sat outside and it was great. So I think next year is going to be much better.
Awesome.
Credit Resorts World for being flexible.
yeah, I think that's a big plus. I think that would be a big plus.
Yeah, if they had a convention center that was big enough for us, that would be an easy decision, and that may come in the future.
All right, before we kind of wrap up this year's show, any topics that we did not hit that you guys wanted to bring up?
Abe?
Oh no, I was just off to wrapping up.
All right. So I think it was the last day.
I'm in the coffee right now.
Yeah.
I'm starting to fade out.
Actually, Aaron, I have something I want to bring up that's gonna stir her hornet's nest. How do I say this? Although I'm not sure how candid we as an organizational board were at the media conference, I would like to see more media at the media conference And if the media feels like they're getting the runaround on a question, I think they should push harder. I feel like media has a responsibility in whatever field it is to push back and get answers. And I'm sitting in the crowd and I'm thinking, God, I wish they'd say this. I wish they'd say that, because that's the only way we're going to get better is if people push at us. And I think the media could push harder at the media conference. So hopefully it doesn't piss you guys off, but I just think that we need that. We need more criticism and honest questions.
Are you saying that William Cooper's not manly enough?
I spoke. I was one of the people who spoke up.
Coop spoke, and one of the guys from Half Wheel spoke, but there were a lot of people that were angry about things that didn't speak, and I think it would have been good for them to express their frustration because that forces us to react.
If you're angry about something and don't speak, then shame on you.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I had I'm very candid. I know people had gripes on certain things, and they kept quiet. And then there's about half the media guys who just choose not to go to that. And I've asked media guys, please go to this meeting, because I want them to continue to have this meeting. It is a great forum, and I felt at least we were being listened to. Maybe there was some things that I didn't agree with the answers, but at least I felt that we had that forum.
Convention center that was enough for us. That would be an easy decision, and that may come in the future.
All right, before we
I
wrap up this year's show, any topics that we did not hit that you guys wanted to bring up? What's going on there?
Who's talking?
That was a weird like
All right.
5
Your
minute
mic almost
delay.
cut out. Yeah, your mic was almost like out of that for a second.
So I think that there was a gathering at Rocky's booth at the end of this day 4 with a spirited discussion. I only saw a little bit of video of Carlito's speech.
That was a
And
CRA.
Anybody else attend this and can report on what this was all about? Is it just
That was the
more?
CRA meeting that I missed.
It was a
Research
general
Oh, okay.
CRA meeting that was actually executed poorly.
Okay.
I was gonna say, look up last year's meeting and repeat.
And the year
Okay.
before, yep.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Yes.
All right. So we already kind of talked about date change, New Orleans, all that kind of stuff. So I don't think we need to go over that again, since unless somebody has a different topic they want to bring up. But just going forward, are there any must changes that the PCA needs to make for upcoming shows?
Well, we talked about one. I mean, Abe and I talked about this on Saturday too. The idea of the media guys were paying to get in, and there are media guys who are not paying to get in, and it's not fair. It's just not fair, and it seems it's been a problem every year. This year it seemed to get a lot more attention at the media conference, but it's definitely a problem. I mean, it's not fair that we're paying to get in, and other people could just get a badge and walk right in and start getting time with manufacturers and stuff like that. I don't think it's fair.
One of the things that kind of echo on that, Coop, is I think this is the first year I saw a lot more retailers who are also doing, and this is not directed at Mike, but there's a lot more retailers that are doing their own brand of in sort of in-shop media. So they're doing a podcast or they're doing a video cast. No issues with that.
They're paying to get in. At least they're paying to get in.
They're paying to get in.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to present some challenges for us as strictly being media going forward, because there were certainly some examples where retailers going into a booth to talk retail, and that transitioned into a media session. And so now we're kind of in an uncomfortable zone of, media is competing with retailer media. I didn't think it was a big deal this year, but you can definitely see where that trend is sort of going, because
that's a general trend, John, because what's happening is so many more retailers are just taking control of their own social media.
Mhm.
So they're asking you to make these short little videos saying, hey, such and such is coming to so-and-so's shop. Please do this, blah, blah, blah. Check it out. Boom, boom, boom. I found most of them to be very light, because most of those guys, they didn't want a lot of time. They really wanted like 30-second, 60-second kind of clips. It's going to become more challenging. Look, there are a few, like we just added a UK importer on, right? And I had to say to him, listen, I want to do a good job for you, and me doing it here right now isn't good. Let me go back from the trade show. I will make you, 5 or 6 clips, talk about the brands you brought into the UK, and I'll send them to you in a couple of weeks. So part of that too is us as manufacturers, saying, no, we can't really do this right here, right now, and saying, but then following up with them and doing them after the fact. Because I mean, I obviously, if a guy like Mike wants me to promo something that he's going to put up on his Instagram page, it behooves me to do that, right? So, but it is hard to juggle them in the middle with everybody, ducking in and getting in the middle of videos and giving you a hug and boom, boom, boom. And it's like, oh, I didn't know you were, it is, but everybody has a camera in their pocket. Everybody's doing this stuff now. And I don't see how we're going to turn the clock back on that. But I don't think what Coop's talking about. I think what Coop's talking about is the retailers that share badges with influencers that they shouldn't be sharing.
Retailers,
Yeah.
manufacturers. I mean, look,
I'm out. You didn't let me finish. Retailers or manufacturers. I see it. Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, but that's up to us. Look, we can control that, right? I know. Look, I had a couple consumers, right? Chris Duque's there, right? Every year. He works like a dog in the booth. This year I had Jason at the booth. Jason was there all 3 days working like a dog. So part of it's too, you picking the right people to say, okay, this guy's worth the badge because he's really going to hum. But there are people that just give badges away willy-nilly to people that they shouldn't.
which once again goes back to the conversation Group and I had earlier. This has been an ongoing thing since the beginning of time. Retailers getting in who didn't really pay their dues. Manufacturers getting in who didn't pay their dues and selling shit out of duffel bags and making side means and stuff. This is, I think, just part of any exhibition or trade show. I don't think there's anything, if we're going to complain about something or focus on something, let there be a resolve. I don't think there's a real resolve here on the behalf of the PCA. People are always going to find a way to scam. Manufacturers or retailers are going to hook up a friend or hook up a buddy. It's going to happen. The difference is you're a legitimate guy. The whole industry knows you. When you come in, you set a precedent. When Johnny come lately blow with fake badge doesn't get that treatment.
I understand
That's
that.
the difference.
But
That's the difference.
there's a huge cost difference is where I'm going with. And why don't I maybe next year just go to Rocky Patel and ask for badges?
Listen to me.
Yeah.
I got that. I got it's a huge cost difference, Coop.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you,
Yeah.
Johnny come lately Joe Blow, who couldn't afford a badge, is not making revenue like you guys are also making on the industry as well. I mean, it's all relative.
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, the PCA can only do so much. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be allowed in. They definitely shouldn't be allowed in. But is it really controllable?
I don't know. It's a fair
can
point. Fair point.
Can we control it? Because if it really isn't controllable, then what are we waiting for?
I don't think the PCA wants to be in that business of controlling it either. I totally get it.
I was on the board. No, listen to me. I was on the board. In the 3 years we were on the board, we tried to set a definitive guideline on who from the media. Listen, I was there on the board. In fact, it was my tenure on the board when we finally decided to legitimize the media and give them a pass instead of them just sneaking in. Let's just let them give them a standard. Let's make what was required to consider you to be official media and whatnot. I think they want to. It's just not that easy to patrol at the end of the day because listen, I see it in the Great Smoke. I see consumers coming in and people coming in. They're just getting in passes with other people. They're just hanging out. I mean, it's just, there's only so much to be done. At the end of the day, though, I think there's a testament to guys like you and Aaron and John and the legitimate guys who have paid their dues. And that is felt when anytime you walk into somebody's booth like Pete or Steve or somebody where you're recognizing when you're going to get a certain level of respect and accommodation at time of day where Joey Blow come lately, wannabe blogger with a Gurkha badge is trying to get an interview. I just think there's a balance to that at the end of the day.
Any other must changes?
I think the aisles got a little hokey at the end. They weren't really all in line, which was kind of strange. Like,
Yeah.
it turned into like this blah at the tail end of the PCA. So I mean, that should probably be in unison, to some degree, because then people get stuck behind someone else and they disappear. I did see that.
Yeah, I noticed there was some booths where like they might have had a back wall and the next booth right behind them had the same design where they were like just that long row with a back wall, and like unless you like walked right down that aisle and peeked around the corner, you wouldn't even know they were there.
Yeah,
So.
you got to kind of make those things.
But I think that's really hard to coordinate with people to like know what their layout's going to be, and know who's going to block who and kind of things
Give
like
them X
that.
amount of space for coverage and
Yeah.
tell them this is how you gotta lay it out.
Yeah, we had an issue with Padron where the booth in front of them built these high towers, and they weren't very happy about that. So we put some signs directing to the Padron booth. I mean, people could find the Padron booth, but still, that was an issue that rose up. So
Blinking
we
neon
tried to help
lights
them out
pointing
there.
down.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
that's important.
But there is a height limitation, right? I mean, it's well printed, I think. So, I mean, I don't know why Padron would complain because I think their booth is over the height limitation, so they're already tall.
Any wish list items for future shows that maybe not a must change, but something that you'd like to see happen?
I'd like to see it be in the summer. Just kidding.
I was about to say, hey, let more random media people.
Oh,
do it.
Yeah.
Abe, you were just gonna make me very happy.
More Ricola at Saka's booth.
Damn
Ran out
right.
last day.
Ran out way too quick.
Dude, I think we've been known now. Everyone knows where to come and get a Ricola.
Yeah.
So we have to.
You
Yeah.
need to go to them and ask for a sponsorship. Let's
Yeah,
get
we're
real.
gonna triple the Ricola next year.
Yes.
Yeah,
There was Ricola. I had no idea there was Ricola.
yeah. At least 1,000 people did know it. That was. We went through a lot of Ricola this year, I think. We'll have more.
All right. I think we're at the end, unless somebody has anything else that we didn't cover. All right. Gentlemen, I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. I know we're nearing the 3-hour mark, and it's late for the East Coasters, and you're all tired getting back from the trade show, but it's very appreciated that you joined us. We had pretty much this very same panel from last year. Wanted to have you all back and, really, go over this. We had such a good time last year. I think we've kind of topped that even again this year. So again, from John and I, thank you guys all for joining us tonight.
No, thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
For all the viewers, thank you for tuning in. I hope, there was a ton of people from the industry chatting in the comments. So I think that there were a lot of people that were interested in seeing what was going to be said about on the show tonight. So I hope everybody had a good time watching or, watching it recorded, listening podcast. And there's a ton of good info here. So hopefully, things that we brought up about helping for future shows or companies going to their show, they'll find something educational here and helpful. So again, thank you to everybody that was on the show or watched the show. And hopefully we can do this all again next year if you guys are all willing to do it. So thank you all. Have a great night, and we will talk to you all soon.
Later.